Alrighty, well, I think we just pulled up, if we're at the right house. Yep.
I'm coming out.
What's up? How are you?
How you doing?
Great, man. I'll just be y'all here 15 minutes.
Well,
I went to Mexico. Charlie was down there doing taxidermy work in Mexico City and jaguar hunting.
You know, they threw a can out there and I drilled it first shot and they go, "Golly guys, why did they let us go? Get the gun, take the gun with you." He didn't do it. He saw a gorilla. It was coming in late to the rattle, see? That's what it's gonna be like the rest of your eternity. This too, keeper. Yeah, that's tall.
That line.
Yeah, but he's good. Get on the knee. That's handbag. Get on the knee and get him. That's Andy. But at the end of the first day hunting together in that brush, Roy had counted 48 bucks. I said, "You saw a big deer when you have the gun with you." "Oh no, I screwed up." He said, "It looked like the reinest buck. Two arms sticking out real wide." He took it up on two wheels and cleared his head. He took it into that other lane on two wheels, cleared his head, and then set it back down. I was loose in the back seat, no seatbelt. I was still stuffing shit in the packs. And have you ever seen him do that? Yes. 37 days of glory.
Oh my gosh.
We weren't on the edge of glory, we were in the glory. They had got heat-seeking little sensor detectors. They could just walk along there watching that air and that thing would point at a warm body. I popped the horns. If I hadn't seen a good buck in 15 minutes, I'm ready to move.
I mean, we saw probably 200 bucks at least.
Gee, see, you say that doesn't even sound real.
But when a 140 10-point buck with an 18, 19 inch spread comes running in at you point blank, just freezes right on you. I don't care who you are, how many times you've done it, that makes you want to shoot the hell out of him, you know? The last thing I heard was that angle iron hit me in the back of the skull. It was clang, out cold. When I came to, I'm halfway to the bottom of the lake. I mean, it's pitch dark and I'm 10, 12 feet down. And I could hear my bubbles coming out of my lungs, you know, just blub, 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 blub. If you hear this sound, he said, "That's the jaguar. They're mating this time of year in the spring rainy season." He said, "You'll be able to sneak up on them." "Vamos arriba! Vamos arriba! Come to manos arriba! Come out with your hands up!" I come out, my hands up, that bright light, and I thought I'd make one wrong move, I'm hamburger. I mean, all them guns were right on.
And then after that, we found that dead man.
Oh, God. When Roy was there, we crossed to the other side of the highway hunting over there, and then we came back, and as we left after dark, here's this van rolled up into the trees in the fence line area. Straight look at him for a split second. He was a 200-inch deer. He had multiple forks and handlebars. He was a mule deer-looking range. He had wide, tall, 15-inch length tine stuff. I just grabbed the gun away from him and ran over there, and I could just make out a buck crossing one little hole, and I saw the top, and I go, "That's not the same deer." Because it looked, the part I saw was just an 8-point looking side, but then here came the rest of the rack. I got on him, and he's still moving, and I almost crossed that hole completely, and I got one off in his liver. Huge 9-point. He's got double eye guards, and he's got a foot stinger high, one back tine. And I'm going, "Let me get a picture first." And he just looked at me, and his face was just stretched, and he goes, "Unbelievable, man! Unfucking believable!" He'd never seen nothing like that. I broke his cherry wide open on the first rattle. I mean, he just flipped completely out. Screamed. You know, someone could have been tracking us or something and heard that. You don't do that, but he lost it.
Are you ready for today?
I was born ready. Drop me off.
Oh, here we go. Big day up here in North Texas for the podcast. We're gonna
We got 3 pods in 2 days, and it's gonna be fun. First of all, we're starting out with Charles Beaty, then we're going to Chad Allen Jones, and then my buddy Jake's Schumann's house to talk with him and Micah. But anyways, before these big podcasts, I'm a nervous sweater. I tend to sweat when I get nervous, so I'm throwing on some of this Shield Core Body Foam. That way I don't smell. Throw this on before the podcast, be good to go. But we're fixing to get breakfast, and then we're gonna head out and get after this thing, so stay tuned.
That was actually perfect timing.
Was it?
Yeah. All right, guys. Just got done eating at what's it called? I think Maria's Country Kitchen. It's something like that. I don't know. It's a country kitchen, and little inside joke, they got very good hospitality. So headed to go meet up with Charlie right now, the first stop on the podcast tour, like I said before, and pretty excited. Should get there in about 20 minutes, and yeah, good old Charlie. It's like that. He's like that that uncle or grandpa that, you know, he starts telling a story and you're like, ah, whatever, and then you end up, you know, cross-eyed or cross-legged, starry-eyed, you know, just sitting on the floor listening. But I don't know. I'm excited. Apparently, he's got a few untold stories. He's got a few untold stories that he's gonna share with us, and I don't know. It'll be interesting to see the dynamic between him and his buddy, and what all they did together. So I don't know. I'm excited, and we'll bring you back out whenever we pull up to his house. Get out of the wind.
Hello.
Hey, Charlie. Are you here?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I think we just pulled up. If we're at the right house.
Outside.
Yep.
I'm coming out.
Alrighty.
Here, Roy.
What's up? How are you?
How you doing?
Great, man. I'll just be y'all here 15 minutes.
Well, this
I
your rig
got-
right here?
Yeah, I got minnows, and I got one extra pole. Y'all might have to share it. No,
We got two.
got some more?
We got two.
Cool. Come on in and meet
go.
Roy.
I love it.
That pound of minnows begging to be drowned. One of my tricks is you drive fast from the minnow shop here. Get them real dizzy, and they're easy for the crappie to catch. This was the homemade reload. I crippled up 7.5 weeks later, went back 3rd week of March.
What's up with the hide on this one? It's like white.
This ultraviolet comes in here off the water and bounces around in here, ricochets, and just bleaches, you know, anything in.
Oh my God.
Now here's my moose right up above you.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
I glued those snakes to a linoleum and then trimmed it out, and then we tacked them under the wall there in both of those.
That's one snake right there?
Yeah.
What
We
kind of
got
snake is
those in a
that?
postal confiscation auction where the government sees them and then they auction them for funds. But look at these deer, they're growing in the pasture here up on the hill. These are sheds that they're finding.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, they bought some great bloodlines and stocked it years back, and now it's really doing good.
Yeah.
But this is another one they found in the pasture.
Wow.
I think this is a match set. No, it's the same deer, same side.
Oh my God.
And a lot of them are Kennedy pickups that we brought out on a couple of his hunts with me. We used to have one that had 11 typical points on one side, and it was stolen. Someone come up here in the party and took it.
Really?
Yeah, it was a nice one. See, that buck's curve is what makes him score so good. He's got 24-inch plus beams, but the back tines are 12 inches, and then the 8-inch forks. You know, just picture him as a typical 180. I mean, he's got that curvature, that great outside curvature is what makes them measure up better than they look.
You did this mountain?
Yeah, that thing was a perfect mountain. The sun has bleached these things out. It has just destroyed the caves. Here's the park deer. Now this drop on this side was broke off, but I put this drop back. There was about 1.25 inches or so left of it where it had snapped off in the velvet, but you know, he's the descendant of the same bloodline, the one that got away, but the other one just smoked him. The other one had this style of base, trash on the back on both sides, big old 12.5-inch drop on the right, and a 14 plus on the left, and it was 3 to 4 fingers wide at the bottom. I mean, it looked like a boat oar.
This is the one from Fort Worth?
Yep.
Okay, I remember.
Yeah, the refuge buck.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Nature Boy hunt. Ric Flair for a season. Woo!
I can't.
What is this?
This another picked up head that they got off that Timber Ghost. I see it, Timber Ghost, not Timber Ridge. Timber Ghost up in the middle of nowhere somewhere. Get the gun, take the gun with you. He didn't do it. He saw a gorilla. It was coming in late to the rattle, see? Because I bow killed this little buck for some meat and stuck him too far back. Well, he shot him running, and so we had to go look for blood. And when he went without the gun, he paid the price. A pair just like that he saw for my dad, and it won in the '88 Nationals. It won first place. So he wanted a pair just like them, and that's what I did those.
On a piece of driftwood? That's awesome.
Lake Bridgeport. And what happened, the shell gets in this glass and it grows so damn much it can't get out.
That's cool.
So that was I thought a really neat find.
One of a kind. Yeah. That's a one of a kind.
Touch a big piece of petrified
That's
wood.
a monster.
No.
That's like a beach 12.
You think you could deadlift that?
Yeah, right here's where I saw it a while ago.
That's crazy.
And we was getting ready for a hunt. I think this is my first hunt with him. And right now he's getting salt and he's getting all this stuff because we're going to be in there. We're
14 days.
Go hunting for at least 7 days, wasn't it?
There was 14 on that first hunt together.
Was it 14?
14 days.
So we was on that 14-day hunt and we was getting ready for it. Now this right here is a picture of inside of the ranch. But it was
that those drug runners? We saw 6 drug runners. That may be them. There's a picture somewhere of those 6 blue backpack hauling dope runners.
Yeah.
He had to crawl.
14-day hunt. And what old was I?
53.
53.
See, Roy's 80 now. You know, this is 30 years ago when he went with me.
And look at this neat picture of the big cactus.
Right? Yeah, some of the landscape.
Oh yeah, here's going up sand dunes. And this was an old dwelling here. And here I'm climbing out and getting ready for the day, putting on my boots, and that's in the Kennedy.
Yeah.
When you guys would sleep, would you just try to tuck up under that brush and just to kind of stay out, or?
Well, we had a 2-man pup tent. We spent a lot of nights in it. If it was cold, we'd get in and out of the cold with the tent. But
yeah, here we both are.
sometimes just a lean-to was adequate.
I think right here, this picture right here, I think we emptied up, we always took a quart of whiskey, Crown Royal. And I think that right there was the day we finished it. How long did it last us? About 3 or 4 days?
Well, it wasn't half the hunt. I mean, we try to salvage it. We'd have a couple of stiff drinks in the evening and enjoy the landscape, and then go eat and go to bed. But it wouldn't last the whole hunt. Neither did the Copenhagen. We got stories on that. I wanted to kill him when we come out, and he'd left a whole brand new can in the truck. So we'd be there when we got out, and we'd run out for 3 or 4 days, and we were both about to kill each other. All the way through the hunt, he kept saying the same thing, like there was an alma motto, you know. Well, what he would say was, you just tell your buddies when they want to go. He said, you tell them, no. Got to take the old man hunting. He was hooked and he didn't want anybody else going with me from then on.
But that was a sand dune here. That was how steep it was. Here we are. And to where we wouldn't leave any tracks.
I mean, that's all the way outlaw. When you put them mops on,
yeah.
you know.
I'll tell you what, I've still got my mops.
Right?
It looked like Chewbacca off Star Wars with the hairy feet.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the buck from that hunt, Jake. Right here.
Yeah, right there.
That was the pick of the litter. And that buck came to me first. Unlike most of the time, they'd circle and go to him and I wouldn't even see him. But this buck came to me immediately and then he went on around out of sight. And so I waited a little bit and I did the doe call. Oh, oh. He heard me and he said, boy, in just about 15, 20 more seconds, he showed up, all wired looking. Got him.
He fell probably no more than 30 yards. I mean, his hair's still standing up. I mean, he coming there. Yeah, he is something else.
Early to mid 90s, you know, because I had moved to Mexico City in about 94 and I was flying in from Mexico City and you were picking me up at the airport and we'd go to his condo and pack up everything there in Arlington and drive all the way to South Texas. I remember one year we did that. I was in Mexico City
it was
then.
That's the biggest buck I've ever killed.
Yeah, but he let two get away
now I've
better
got
than
him
that.
out there. I've got him out there in the pasture right now. That'll go 250.
Well, that was the end of the Pelon hunt when we blew the stove.
This is Mexico.
Tell them who that is. Oh, that's not Reggie. I thought that was Reggie. That's my friends in Mexico.
I went to Mexico. Charlie was down there doing taxidermy work in Mexico City. And I went down there to visit with him and then we was gonna go on a hunt.
And did, went in the jungle.
Jaguar and oscillated turkey. But I got Mexico. Well, they threw me they had a party and that was nice. Met all of Charlie's friends there and jaguar hunting. And so we're on the road. Every time we went from one county to the next, we had these patrol people. And of course, he had to show his bow and arrow, and every one of them had to see how good he was with the bow and arrow.
Yeah, they threw a can out there and I drilled it first shot and they go, a lot of guys, why did they let us go? They wanted to see if I was really a hunter or not.
My guide asked me, hey, you want to kill a monkey? I guess, you know. Yeah, you think it's okay? Sure. Bam!
Really doing on my partner's shit.
Here comes monkey. And I brought it into camp. And these old boys, I mean, they just went all haywire because I was killed a monkey. And that's whenever they left. They said, we got all this out.
They whipped out and left when we got outlaw blood stirring.
Alrighty.
There you go. Alright, now I'm going to tackle box with all y'all need. You need fish too. Keep her. Need to keep her below. Yep. They're here.
Old paper mouth.
Ooh, that's a good fish.
Oh shoot, he's wrapped up in you, isn't he?
Sandbag. You got me. We both caught that one. I got an assist on it. Yeah, that's
Literally, I just wasn't getting to the right depth.
These four not getting in the brush. No, I've got fish too. Oh, I got a big yellow cat or something. That's a big catfish. Yep. That's a yellow cat. He's gonna wear me out. Uh-oh. Big yellow tail, probably a yellow tip.
Oh, I see him, yeah.
I think he's a little flat here, about 12 pounders. I'm keeping out of that tree top, I can kill him. Fish on board. Oh yeah, boy. I haven't done it yet. I'm killing him. Just got hot. Look at that lake. There's a lot of them in here. Pretty fish. That one right there, you don't even have to cut the red off of. You can bang him in the middle, but then that belly steak, you steam that over a stainless grill, perforated grill.
Yeah, it's wrapped in that line.
Yeah, but he's good. You don't need that sandbag. Get on and get him. That's Sandy. Good Sandy. Anyway, I went around the checkpoint.
Welcome to the Hunter's Advantage podcast, where a group of budget-minded hunters scour the woods for whitetail bucks and whatever other big game is in season. Tune in each week to hear the hilarious public and private land hunting stories and mistake-filled lessons learned. We believe that every hunt brings us closer to God and that we exist to share the good news. And now, your hosts, Christian Babcock and Jake Gaylord.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. We're here for a very special episode with a familiar face, if you guys have watched our podcast anytime in the last 4 or 5 years. But we got Charles Beaty. And Charles, why don't you introduce your friend here for the first time being on the podcast?
Yeah, I've got my best friend here, Roy Thornton, from the Chico, Texas area, Lake Bridgeport. Roy and I became great friends about 1990 in a taxidermy shop in Fort Worth, and we just bonded. Not too many years later, we went on a few hunts together. He's made 3 big-time outlaw hunts with me, and he wouldn't take anything for having gone and experienced that type of hunting. He said he just thought he knew how to hunt until he went on a full-time outlaw hunt with me. How about that?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I've never enjoyed any other hunt. It's like now I probably hadn't killed a deer in 8 or 10 years because it's not that much of a challenge. Mm-hmm. But I'd still like to kill a big one on my place to have it mounted.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got a stand over there in the pasture. I call it Charlie Stand. There's Charlie Stand, Joey Stand.
Yeah.
And that's how much I've enjoyed hunting with Charlie.
Yeah.
He's dedicated to it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Before we get started, we just want to say thank you for letting us bombard your house. And,
yeah.
I mean, it's amazing what you have hanging in here. Like, I've never seen anything like it personally.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. It's really, it's all company for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm up by here by myself, I can just look around and that's how much I enjoy hunting. You can look at my house and tell that.
Oh yeah, there's no shortage. And Charlie, you got several mounts in here as well, which you got some of your. How many do you have hanging in here that are part of your collection?
I think there's 5 heads here that I've killed, and I know I have my moose head here, and you might see it in the background up there in the stairwell. But
you got one up there.
Yeah, got another little head up in the condo next door. But I didn't have a place to hang that moose, and I said, I don't know if I would even mount it. And Roy said, I got a place to hang that moose. You get that moose mounted, and I'll show you a place we're going to hang it, my lake house. And we have, and that's where it stayed. Been there about 25, 30 years now.
Yeah.
Since 94, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, heck yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people have heard your story, and obviously Roy's an extension of that story because you guys went on some hunts together. But for people that are maybe tuning into the podcast for the first time, can you take us back 30 years on kind of how this started and then kind of how you got hooked up with Roy, and then go from there into kind of your guys' adventures and outlaw hunting together?
Yeah, my start was way back in 1976. But after 7 years of poaching the King and Kennedy ranches, then I quit, started going to church for 6 years, didn't outlaw hunt any, didn't break any game laws, and was married and had a wife and son, and spent that 6 years in church and had my own taxidermy shop. And, after a rough divorce, just found myself free to do whatever I wanted to do. And 2 police officers talked me into going back to outlaw hunting, to take one first, and the other one, he couldn't stand it. He said, I got to go too. And he went, and it was back on. Well, about that time, Roy and I had become real good friends. And I actually had some of my deer heads in hock to another man that was a friend of mine, had gone out to West Texas to Lubbock to finish his biology degree in a university out there. And he was needing the money back that I owed him on those heads he'd, hocked and loaned some money on. So Roy said, I'll spring for the, balance due, and let's go get them. We'll put them in the lake house. And so that's how 3 of the big deer here got in the lake house from the old days. And they include the Rainus buck and the homemade reloads. And I've got a couple of Tarrant County park deer in this area from that and that time period and early 90s. But once I got Roy to go with me, it was on for him too, just like it had been me my whole career as a poacher. He got addicted to it. And I'll give you an example. We went hunting up in the brush on our 3rd hunt together, and on the first day, putting him 60 to 70 yards downwind of me on every rattle, he was seeing all the deer. One buck that day came blowing by me and just screeched to a halt 5 steps past me, and every hair on him standing up. His tail went straight up there and just started quivering, and then he just blew up and blew out of there. And he went right by Roy, and he saw it too. But at the end of the first day hunting together in that brush, Roy had counted 48 bucks. I saw that one of the 48 bucks. And so that shows you how smart those deer are. You've got a position, you got to have a partner, and you've got to position a man 50, 60, 70 yards downwind of you. He's going to see all the deer. You're not going to see hardly any of them. And, 2 days later, 3 days later, when he killed his deer, that buck, out of just a freak of nature, he came to me first. Then he went downwind trying to circle and get wind on the area, and I used my doe call. And when I did, Roy said it wasn't just 15 seconds, and he showed back up all bristled up, looking around for that doe sound and maybe any of the bucks, and got him. And I mean, that was it then. You couldn't have stopped him from doing that type of hunting, no matter what you paid him. He didn't need the money anyway, but it's addictive as drugs, isn't it, Thornton?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I enjoy it. Nothing like this. I never even dreamed of doing something like this until I met Charlie, found out his experiences, and hey, that sounds like something I'd like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was enjoyable.
Now,
It was.
before you went and hunted with him, did you kind of believe all the stories that he's told and all the people that he's taken told, or did you just kind of blow it off and I got to see it to believe it type of thing?
No, I believed him right from the very beginning. Because he's just that type of person.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen Charlie make up stories of any kind. He's just pretty straightforward.
I had the horns to back him up.
Yeah.
Proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, that'll definitely do it.
Yeah.
It's been interesting. I've read or listened to several podcasts recently. One of them being the Seek One podcast with Levi Morgan and
Lee Ellis.
Yeah, Lee Ellis, and they were hunting in the Golden Triangle in South Texas, and they were seeing dozens and dozens of bucks this year in South Texas, and they said that they had listened and heard, podcasts that you had done previously and not believed the truth about those areas in South Texas. But after going and seeing it for themselves, they realized that the Golden Triangle and down in that South Texas area really is some of the best whitetail hunting on the planet.
The best.
Hands down?
The best. I don't know what it's like to hunt Canada and kill one of them monster-bodied deer, massive racks. I'd like to do that, but after what I've been through with the cancer and all, I don't know if I can take the cold as much as I used to, or the heat. They both seem to bother me now, after the damage from the cancer. But, get up there and do it once. I'd like to go kill one of them 300-pound Nova Scotia bucks or something, Manitoba, just one time, you know. I'd like to get one hunt in up there, you know, and see it, you know, and know what it's about.
I remember last time we got you on the pod, kind of talking in the frame of, you know, the bigger bucks you've seen. You talked about a buck that you were after, and I think you got like 2 of the 3, but then there's an old guy in like $100 pickup that you think ended up getting that buck. Didn't you say that was the biggest buck you've ever seen on the hoof?
No, I saw the biggest deer in that red Nunley over there at Encinal. I saw a deer in the I-220s. I know he was. I could draw you a picture of him. That deer got away when I was still young, dumb, didn't know what I was doing. I just buck fevered and gawked at him. You know, he stopped twice. Could have shot him if I was experienced as I got years later. I would have killed that deer. I just wasn't on my game yet. Second year down there. It happened so quick. Wasn't expecting it. Caught me off guard, and I just buck fevered. I just gawked at him. But he was hands down the biggest trophy I ever laid eyes on.
What does a 220-inch deer look like if you had to paint a picture?
Well, he had 12 or more typical points, but he had 6 forks. I'll never forget those 6 forks on those, you know, back 3 uprights. There was at least 6 forks. They just distinguishedly stood out. You know, they were so long I could count them easily, but, you know, just estimately count them, you know, at least half a dozen forks.
Oh, my gosh.
And big old pyramid eye guards that nearly touched. He just massive. 190-pound field dress deer, black Bramer bull-looking buck, you know. Huge. He's about 3 times the size of that doe was in front of him.
Oh, wow.
You know, that reminds me of the time that you was rattling, and I saw this huge buck. I mean, this was a huge buck in the Pelon Seal Hill. It's like, good God, that damn thing is, yeah, it's a deer. And it was like, went through this opening, and then there's this little brush right here, and then there's an opening, and he was going this way. And I was ready for him. He never showed up. He just went straight.
When did you?
But it was a huge buck.
So, Roy, I'm curious to see what is your origin story kind of into hunting? How did you grow up hunting? Where did you grow up? And did you grow up? I mean, obviously you're a hunter. You've done that all over the world. It looks like. But where did you grow up whitetail hunting?
I grew up in Hamilton.
Okay.
Hamilton, Texas. At that time, there wasn't any deer in Hamilton County. You had to go to the hill country to get deer. And of course, I'm one of 8 children. Naturally, we didn't have money to get a deer lease and hunt deer. And but I've always hunted jackrabbits or whatever we needed, you know. And I just always enjoyed that, you know.
He just reminded me of a story. I got to tell this. You want to talk about our origin and friendship? This is a connection we put the dots together on years later. He used to run me off of a covey of quail he was feeding up in his backyard. He lived on Susan Street in Arlington, and that was one big block east of Mitchell Street, where I was raised. That I'd sneak my shotgun down Mitchell and go out in them fields and started my first outlaw hunting, if you will. It was in city limits of Arlington. And he would run me off. He liked working his bird dogs. He was a big quail hunter then. He liked working his bird dogs on those quail there, and he left them alone. He didn't shoot them. He liked them to be there. And we'd shoot anything we saw. And he goes, "Hey, you boys." He come out his backyard there one time. He butted up against that vacant field, and he said, "Y'all get out of here and leave my quail alone." He run me off. We connected the dots on that years later, and I said, "You old bastard, that was you." And he goes, "Yeah, that was you, you little bastard." But that was hysterical when we made the connection, you know, put the dots together on that.
What was you, 10 years old?
No, 13. I was 13 and sneaking my shotgun out.
I mean, he'd put that shotgun in this leg of his and then ride his bicycle with one leg.
Old stiff-legging.
Oh, man. I just remembered. I'm glad I thought of that. That was hilarious. That's the day we met and didn't even know each other until 1991 or 2 there. We got acquainted better.
So you get acquainted. You walk into he walks into your taxidermy shop to drop something off.
He was good friends and had done business with John White, the icon of taxidermy in Fort Worth or in Haltom City, a suburb. And at John's shop, when I began to work during the summer and help him catch up his birds, he was way behind on them. I came from Alpine, went to his shop, and started catching him up one summer, and met Roy there at John's shop. We just latched, and within months, told him about those deer. He went out to West Texas with me, and old John said, well, if he's trying to double cross you, Roy, just pull the 357 out from under the seat. And he goes, I've got one. So we go out there packing, and Roy paid off the heads and got them out of hock. Came back, mounted them up, put them up here at the lake house. Yeah, that's hilarious. I remember you jumping us in that field that day. What a small world. Yeah. Just shows you what a small world it is when something like that happens. And over time,
kidding.
You track back and remember.
I mean, to run him off and then meet him like, what, 7, 8 years later?
About 15 years later.
Was it 15?
Yeah, about 15 years later. Yeah.
Man, the guy that was pestering you ends up being the guy that gets to take you down there to do some hunting, huh?
What are the odds? You know, you could write that as a movie script, and it couldn't be farther from the truth, but that's the way it happened. When we made the connection on that, we started dying laughing. I said, you old son of a bitch, you're the one that's running me off when I was trying to kill all them quail.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what was your all's first hunt like?
Well, we went in on a long hunt right off the bat, 14 days in the Kennedy. And I mean, day one, he mentioned it earlier when we were looking through the albums, you know, he woke up before I did. We spent most of the night walking in to get deep. I think we were about 11 miles deep. And I'd shot a hog right before dark. No, that was the next night. Okay, so he told me, he said, I woke up and was just going to pee. And he said, when I rolled over to kind of see if you were awake and I'll get up to pee, he bumped the rattling horns with one arm. They were sitting between us. And he bumped them, and they went, he looked up, 3 bucks came running up. He wakes me up, and he goes, look at that. I said, no, that's not what we come in here for. I mean, they were respectable deer, but they were not shooters. And he goes, man, I can't believe that. Because then he knew we weren't there to play. We were there to kill trophies. When he saw me pass them 3 deer, he knew it was on. And, you know, that first trip, it was a drought year, and, you know, he let one big deer getting away from me to look for a blood trail on a bow kill. And I told him, I said, where you going? He said, I'm going to go look for the blood over here like you tell me. I said, no, take the gun with you. And he goes, all right, I'm going this way. And he goes that way. He don't take the gun. When I come back, I couldn't find blood, and I come back, find any blood, and his face was just sick. I said, you saw a big deer. When you have the gun with you? Oh, no, I screwed up. He said, it looked like the reinless buck, just 2 arms sticking out real wide. Just made him sick, you know. So he paid the price, but he did shoot a respectable deer on that trip. But that was the buck of the hunt, you know, that one that he saw when we separated looking for the blood trail on that meat buck that night. And it got close to midnight. We went to bed hungry. We're starving. We need some meat. This day's into the hunt. I heard these hogs over there by this Diablo windmill. I said, I'll be right back. Where you going? I said, I'm going to get us something to eat. I don't know about you, but I could eat a brick wall right now. And I got up, took my rifle and a flashlight, went over there, shot a pig, brought back some meat. We fired up the stove and cooked and ate. And got some good sleep then. But, you know, you can't work that hard hunting and have that big an appetite and go to bed hungry. You got to have something in your belly to go to sleep on.
I think that was a javelina.
No, that was on the way out.
Oh,
and
was
that
it?
Was the second hunt. Then we went the next year for 16 days. He killed 3 beautiful deer, but dumbass me was running across this water about 12, 15 inches deep, and my camo top was flying and flopping, and it threw the camera out. We already had some pictures in it, and that was the only good camera we had for the whole hunt, and it sank in this big flooded area in about a 75 to 100 yard stretch of flooded area. I couldn't even go back and look for it. I didn't think I'd have a chance of finding it. We went that whole hunt and missed getting to take pictures of all 3 of those good bucks. They're in the condo in Arlington, but they're real respectable deer, you know, around 150, low 150s, but pretty deer, heavy ones, trophy shooter deer. And then he was so addicted after that hunt, that's the only way to describe it. You know, he wanted some more of it, so all right, let's go to the brush. We hit the Pelon CO, and that's when he killed his biggest deer ever, that 159 up there. And like I say, that was just one of the few deer that came to me first, and he lucked out and got him when he circled. But, you know, we've had our ups and downs in there. You can't be in there and run out at Copenhagen and not get irritable. And we got on each other's nerves so bad on that last Pelon hunt. We're about to kill each other. Oh, man, that reminds me of something. Let's talk about near-death experiences. We're on our way to the Pelon CO, and we're on 133 right underneath the Chaparral Wildlife Management Area. There's high grass. They had not cut the grass in the bar ditches. It was 4 feet Johnson grass in the bar ditches. Benny, his partner, some of his asphalt work then, was a ride man taking us. Well, we're done 60, which was the speed limit, but this hog comes out of the high grass just right in front of the truck. 400-pound pig. Worst thing could have happened was he just stopped right in our lane. Benny took it up on 2 wheels. He had to have been a previously race car stunt driver or something to do it, but he didn't have any choice. We'd have lost control if we'd have hit that pig at all. He took it up on 2 wheels and cleared his head. He took it into that other lane on 2 wheels, cleared his head, and then set it back down. I was loose in the back seat, no seatbelt. I was still stuffing shit in the packs. And, boy, you talk about an adrenaline rush. Before we jumped out to go into that ranch, that just wired us for 220. We were ready to do anything then, you know. We all took a big dose of adrenaline, and we looked at each other and said, oh, we almost all 3 died. If we'd have hit that pig and went end over end, upside down, out of control, and rode it, killed all 3 of us. I don't think any of us were wearing seatbelts. Just back before seatbelt laws. But I never will forget that. That's as close to dying in a car wreck as I've come, and I've got several others. But, you know, on my way to a hunt like that, you remember that, don't you, Thornton?
Oh, yeah.
God almighty, that was close.
You know, we was talking about on the first hunting to the Kennedy. Now, I've got some horns. They're right above the fireplace there hanging. That come from the Kennedy.
Yep.
And we rattled that buck up with those horns.
Mm. That's awesome.
Now, is that how you all mostly did it? Is just, you know, rattling up bucks, or how'd you find them when you had a +1?
Well, but rarely saw a big enough opening to spot them out in it in the Pelon. In that Kennedy, there's a lot of open spaces, and you could see a deer, and you could beat the horns. If you could hear it, he'd come. Mm-hmm. And, or you could approach closer where he could hear it and hit him again if the wind's high. But mostly in that Pelon CO, you just travel every 300 to 400 yards and rattle again. You know, I have rattled the same buck on a hunt with another guy one time, 4 rattles in a row. That buck kept coming back up, and I wouldn't let him shoot it. It's a 12.10 with forks. And he said, I can't shoot that, just don't shoot that deer. And on the 4th time we rattled him up, he shot a 171. Good God. 14 points by waiting and, you know, taking my advice. And then he was just all smiles. But he's about to kill me, not letting him shoot that deer. He's a 150-inch something deer, you know, on the forks. But that big one he killed, you know, the Hendricks. That 171 was the best one. He killed out of 4. He killed 4 deer that trip. But, yeah, that time in the Pelon coming out, we were about to kill each other. My stove blew up. And that had me on edge. And we get to the highway, and Roy started questioning, were we at the right culvert, the right little reflector pole to be picked up? And so starting to get on me about it like I didn't know what I was doing. And I said, all right, I think you're right. I was thinking, he ain't learned his lesson yet, back through the cactus and the cat claw and all the needles. And so 500 yards, we go back up to the hilltop, and we started hearing these dogs barking. Well, I got to thinking maybe they were using old Bob, what was that guy's name? The chief guide and biologist, Zaglin. I thought he had dogs that he used to track deer with, maybe on our trail. We got to talking about them dogs. You remember us hearing them? And I thought, man, we might ought to move back down here and see what they're doing. And so we went back through that heavy brush again. I mean, at night, you can't see any of it to guard and block. You're just dragging right through it with your eyes closed. Both of us ended up so screwed up full of needles and thorns and cactus that night. I think we went back and forth twice. And then I said, well, I know this is the right cover. Now we're going to stay here till Benny gets here, you know. But he pulled up and loaded us, and we got out there, and we were still eating at each other. And he goes, y'all want me to pull over and stop and let you settle it? And I said, yeah. And Roy said, yeah, stop the truck. We're about to kill each other. But then we've been laughing about it ever since, man. You know, when you're friends, you get over all that bullshit. But that was about the time we started letting up on hunting together. We said, man, we want to stay friends and not turn into enemies.
Right.
Oh, God, that was funny.
Yeah. I mean, you see it now, like whitetail hunting, everybody hunts from a tree, hunts static, doesn't move around. I could see from your perspective too, Roy, why you get out there, you start rattling, start moving around. That's probably one of the funnest ways to hunt whitetails, especially unpressured ones too.
For sure. For sure. It's to me, it's like the difference in shooting a deer in a pen. You know, you're trapping the deer, you're doing this, you're doing that, and which I'd still shoot a big deer.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not as much fun. It's not the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even close. You know.
Yeah, ain't half the thrill either. I mean, I've got to do some spot and stock stuff, just trying for mule deer and antelope and stuff, and that's just a completely different style of hunting.
It's intense. The spot and stock's good hunting.
Yeah. Yeah, and two, the way you guys are doing it, integrating calling too, you know, getting to rattle, getting to call. I've heard you do the doe sounds, right? Like that's just an interactive way to hunting whitetail that I feel like most people will never understand because they don't hunt deer that aren't pressured like those ones were you guys got to hunt.
Well, one of my other calls that I've used real effective, I learned this from rattling them up and having them do it in my face, but a buck's kind of got an overbite. And they'll come up, and when one mature buck's faced with another one, he'll try to run bluff on him, get him off the territory. And when they see each other, he'll fast pedal at the other one a little bit, and he'll stick his bottom lip out and just go, I can't do it. Have you ever seen him do that? Yes. So it's almost got a little vocal in it. He's growling while he's doing it. That'll ward off a buck that doesn't have the nerve he had. That's a warning, like, I'm telling you, you're fixing to get it. It's the last warning before they'll fight. But I've seen them make it, and when I'm out there and I'm well-versed on it and practiced up, I've used that a lot. And that'll pull one right out on you. I mean, that drops their guard. They're like, it's real. That convinces them it's real. It's a real rattle. It's a real challenge going on. I used to sit and do it and stay practiced up with it, but, that's effective.
I feel like that's something not a lot of people get to witness nowadays. I mean, because with land prices going up and all that, I mean, most people that will probably listen to this podcast either hunts 20 to 60 acre chunks, and within that, there's probably 4 family members that get to hunt that piece of property, and so with those people that don't even get to hunt private, you go on the public, and most of it, I don't want to say all of it, but I would say a good majority of it just gets ran through. And deer don't act like deer are supposed to, how they would in those unpressured environments, kind of like you guys were talking about on the King and Kennedy Ranch. And that's something that I feel like makes this so intriguing, is just the mystery behind the whitetail. You guys witnessed it firsthand. And, I mean, that's something I feel like from here on out hunters are going to be jealous of, I mean, throughout the rest of the time.
It's a thing of the past. It's a shame that it's, the penalty is so stiff. You can't consider hunting like that anymore. But that was real hunting. Unabashed, unabridged. That was as good as hunting gets, There's more fair chase than any other kind of hunting because, other hunters drive to their lease. They drive all around on it. They get in their four-wheeler, go to their stand. They've done all this baiting with food and food plots and, feeding them.
Scent.
Yeah. Like Roy was being interviewed one time by Mark McDonald, a journalist that was talking to me early on about doing a book following my arrest. And he described what hunting is like for most hunters. And Roy looked at him and he said, yeah, shopping with a grocery cart. You might as well have a grocery cart with you. This one's so much. You like that one, you can shoot him for so much. If you like this one over here, you can shoot him for so much. Yeah, like I said, shopping, not hunting.
Yeah. Well, it's became such a popular hobby or thing to do that it's become so commercialized.
It's commercialized. That's the word for it.
Yeah, it's a business, right? Big deer have value.
Yeah.
You know, I can't imagine 35, 40 years ago, like, you know, when deer didn't have as much value as they do today recreationally of what was out there. You know, people didn't want to chase them. There wasn't maybe any money in it, right? There wasn't a TV show to be had 40 years ago hunting a deer. So I can't imagine. It probably, in every sense of the word, is the glory days of whitetail hunting if you were a fanatic, you know?
Yeah, it's over, though. Yeah. Yes, talk about pleasant memories, though. I mean, I'm taking a trip down memory lane every time I tell one of my stories and reliving it. It's like getting to do it all over again for me. But for the people that hadn't done it and hear it, they just wish they could go experience it on that level, because it's the ultimate level. That's what I've called it for years. It's the ultimate level of whitetail deer hunting. It's like an outlaw hunt. It's like taking it back 100 years in time, where you pulled your team of horses up with a wagon behind it, got out, walk. If you knew about how Indians hunted rattling, you were doing that then. I've heard stories, read stories in the Big Rack book about the hunters that would do that they would take a team in a wagon out into their deer lease and get out and rattle. They knew it then. They knew how to do it then. Man, some of the bucks they killed and some of the stories they tell about the bucks they saw running off, just big herds of big bucks. That's the kind of real hunting I, consider that I did. I got lucky. I got to do it on the ultimate level. Roy got a pretty good mouthful of it, too. 37 days of glory.
Oh, my gosh.
We weren't on the edge of glory. We were in the glory.
So, Roy, you hunt that way. Going with Charlie, is there no going back from that when you go back to normal life, hunting over, on a piece of private land? Like, it just doesn't have the mystique that it had before? That was the only way you wanted to do it after that?
Well, I just didn't care for hunting as much. Mm-hmm. Because I know what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be sitting in one of my stands. And heck, I've got 8 stands on my place. Mm-hmm. And every one of them are fed year-round.
Right.
And I bet you I hadn't been in a stand 3 years. It's just, it's just not much of a challenge. I can go out there and shoot a deer anytime I want to. But whenever someone sees a big one, I'll go out there and sit in the stand. Oh, I saw a big one, I missed it, or this, that. Then that's when I go sit in the stand.
They do the scouting for you. So, did you guys have any close calls whenever you two were out hunting together? Like whether that be almost getting caught, or maybe you thought you were going to die and Charlie was laughing at you, or?
Well, the only things I can remember is about those probably drugs coming in.
He was with me when I saw the 6 drug runners, backpacks full of
really?
drugs.
Yeah. Whenever we saw those, I mean, if we'd let them seen us and tried to give them some water or whatever, that wasn't the right thing to do there. So that was a pretty close call. Now, we've seen low-flying airplanes, like just barely above the brush.
Looking for people like you guys?
Yeah.
Looking, and then also they might be running dope, getting out of radar.
Well, in the Pelon Seal, we had one land at night, went right over us. Remember that? They hit a runway in the ranch. And I said, that's either big-time hunters coming in paying big money, or they're using this airstrip for dope. They're flying dope in and then trucking it out from there. I said, it's one of the two. I mean, they blew right over us, and landed just beyond us, about probably 800, 1,000 yards away. But they were so low, it just blew our ears out.
I can't imagine you see people nowadays like whitetail hunters trying to go out west to get that feeling of adventure, and it's crazy that that's in your backyard here in Texas right now. maybe it's not done the right way, outlaw hunting, but it just seems like that feeling of adventure, that vastness of being able to hunt wherever as far as your eyes can see. I just don't see that much these days.
That's freedom, brother. That's true freedom. Go where no man's gone before. There ain't another feeling like it. Like I said, it's turning the clock back 100 years in time when this land wasn't so populated and about time barbed wire even began. Once they rolled out the barbed wire, a lot of things changed. I couldn't have lived any other way. If I was 20 years old right now, I think I'd have still done it.
Oh my God.
What do you think, Thornton? I mean, breaking the law is fun.
As hot as it is sort of part of the thrill is getting by with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that not a spooky feeling? I mean, because you're going out there, and I assume the majority of the time you're out there, you're camping or you're sleeping out there. So not only are you trying to hide from the game wardens, you're also trying to hide from the ranch workers, and also you don't want to get in the mix with the drug runners. And so it feels like you're kind of watching your back from all different angles. And so wouldn't that paranoia almost get to you at a certain point?
Did it ever bother you, really?
Pardon?
Did it ever bother you to really think we were going to get caught?
No, it didn't. Now, I know one time when I got lost, and man, I went on top of this sand dune. Charlie could see me from
almost
across
2 miles.
lake.
Yeah.
And I sat up there, and I sat up there, and I sat up there, I bet you 2 hours. Okay, it's getting dark. I'm going to go find me a place to bed down. And I started walking down. I walked off the sand dune and was going toward a windmill, and I heard Charlie, "Hey, Thornton!" Man, was I glad to see him. Good. Yeah, because I knew, I didn't know the place. I just had to turn myself in.
Mm-hmm.
Go to a windmill and just sit there.
How long were you walking around for, or how long were you lost?
We were apart a little over an hour. It seemed a lot longer to him because he was scared, getting scared. But, the next morning I was making coffee and oatmeal, and we'd been getting on each other's nerves a little the day before, and he looked at me making that coffee and oatmeal, and he goes, "Sure is good to see you this morning, Bubba." I said, "That's more like it."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We look back now and laugh. It wouldn't have been as good a hunt if we hadn't got mad at each other, and now we laugh about it. It's funnier and shit, But we get up on top of these sand dunes in the evening, have a couple of stiff drinks, and look at the lay of the land, just land of enchantment. And then go down into camp, cook, eat a great meal, get a good night's sleep. We got really high tech there at the end. Do you remember when we hunted Campeche Jungle together for jaguar and oscillated turkey and all? Remember Eduardo turning us onto them 2-gallon shower bags? It had a clear side and a black side. You could put it in the sun. The black side would draw heat and warm the water and take a shower with it, hang it in a tree. We hadn't taken a bath in about 12 days, and we were rough. I said, "You want to take a bath?" And he goes, "Hell yeah." And I said, "I'll be back in a minute." And I got that shower bag out and went to the windmill pretty close by and came back with it full and some other jugs of water full. Hung it up in my tree. I said, "You going first or second?" He said, "I might as well get mine out of the way." I said, "All right, I'll run the knob." Had a little old flip switch. He stood there and wet him down. I said, "All right, lather up." And he lathered all up. "All right, I'm going to rinse you off." And I'd help guide it and direct it all over him, get all the soap film off of him, Oh, I feel like $1 million. Took 1 gallon to bathe him. I was next. I rubbed, soaped up all over, and then he rinsed me down. Both of us took showers with 2 gallons of water. 1 gallon apiece will give you a shower. Boy, we felt like $1 million after those showers. That shower bag is still hanging in the devil's den. If the mice and the wood ants ain't eat it, they may have eat it by now.
Oh, that's an adventure.
Yeah, that was the best shower I ever had.
it was cool. You guys, people will see this watching the video before the actual podcast portion of this, but you guys got to take us through the album, and either you guys are the best movie actors at developing photos, or those are real stories with real hunts.
Yeah,
and it seemed from the photos there was a lot of obviously there's a lot in your book, but there was a lot in that album that wasn't in the book. Right. And one of the things that was really cool in the album is you guys showed the mops that you tied to y'all's feet. Did you start using those when you started hunting with him, or you'd used them before?
I had done it the year before. Roy went with me, but only in the Robert East. And I said, we're going to mop up when we go to the Pelon. It's just like hunting Robert East. They can track you over in that red dirt belt. So we mopped up, and I mean, it gives you so much peace. You know they can't track you, so you just calm, cool kitten. You don't even worry about them sneaking up on you. When you're cooking, you're worried about it because the scent. We cooked this thick strip bacon one morning. Remember, we were worried about that smell. That bacon smelled so damn good. And we thought, well, we're okay. We're on the downwind side of that last road. They don't smell us. And when we got through eating and we moved, immediately we hit another road where they could have winded the bacon, and I went, whoa, that's a close one. That was not a good place to be cooking bacon breakfast. They could have smelled it if they'd have drove down that road, the second road there, and with the window down, they'd smelled it and come over there looking. That wasn't cool. But the mops give you a peace of mind. You go, we can't track us. Even when you pop a shot and you hear pressure, you go, welcome to the big leagues, boys. What are you going to do now? You ain't got no tracks to follow. But I heard they had got heat-seeking little sensor detectors. They could just walk along there watching that air, and that thing would point at a warm body. They get close to you from hearing a shot or a rattle, and they look at that needle on that heat sensor, and it'll walk them right to you. It wouldn't even do you any good to be buried in a brush pile track-free, because it'd walk them right to your body heat. When they started using those, Border Patrol got them and gave them to the game wardens, and Ranch Securities got them, and Robert East was using them. I said, I'll never go back to Robert East now that I've heard that. So, when they got high tech, it was quit or hunt till you get caught. It's a matter of time. You're going to get caught. They got too high tech. But those mops bought us about 7, 8 more years peace of mind hunting.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
That's
a great idea.
So would you sew them to your boots? Is that how you did it, or were they detachable?
You drill 10 holes. You drill one out on the nose of the boot, and then 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 1 at the heel. And a half-hitched parachute cord with a long homemade sewing needle out of 16-gauge, baling wire. And I'd run it through and then circle and half-hitch it over the mop at every post. And, I had those 45-degree angles under the sole. I sewed his. He still got them. He's mentioned earlier. He still got them in the attic. You ought to have brought them down. But anyway, half-hitch it, sewed his up, handed him, hand me my boots, put another set of mops on them. All right, let's hit it.
God, the stones. I couldn't imagine. Hunting is turned into something so different than what you guys are describing. Like what most people know is either sitting over a feeder, and I'm not hating on that. I've done my fair share of that. But sitting on a feeder on a small property in the same place that people have for a decade and waiting for a deer to walk by. And to you guys, that just sounds like the most domesticated version of hunting you could ever describe. It doesn't even sound like something that would get you guys out of bed.
Yeah, it bore me to tears. I popped the horns. If I hadn't seen a good buck in 15 minutes, I'm ready to move. Depending on the wind, weather. But they can come in as late as 25, 30 minutes later. I've seen them do it. I climbed a tree one time, and I know I was well into the 30-minute mark. I was trying to see a windmill. I was going to get water after dark. I got up in that tree, and I heard stop right underneath me. That buck had come from 500 yards off or more, and he knew the exact distance that he heard that last strike of the horns. He came right to it and stopped. He knew he was there. Now that's how their hearing can measure distance. I've seen it over and over. That was one time in particular.
Is there any concern, were you playing the wind quite a bit in there?
You have to.
Is everything about the wind?
It's all about the wind. Yeah.
Interesting. and this is mainly brush country type stuff, right? Like live oaks and
Yeah, one of the things I like to do, because I saw the deer do it, was when I walked up on a deer, to calm him and see how many others were there before I spooked them and get a look. One way to keep a doe, especially a spooky doe, there's twice as spooky as a buck, is to stop and start acting like they do. And I'd go, take a step over, like I'm trying to get the wind on them, and boy, they just cross their eyes and ears. And what the hell's that? You know, because they see me as fearful, like they are. Then they're calm. They're not concerned that I'm aggressive. They're not threatened by my presence. And then I'm able to look around, and maybe a buck will step out that you didn't see yet. You know, that's with them. You know, stall out long enough for that to happen. Maybe take a knee and pop the horns and see if anything pulls to them. But, you know, I'd even take my nose up in the air and go, like I was doing the same thing they do. And, boy, they just calm right down after walking up on them.
So when you're creeping through, you know, all that brush, what are you looking for that makes you say, hey, I want to stop and rattle right here? I mean, surely you're not hunting your way through the whole thing, right?
Like I said, every 300 or 400 yards, but then your rubs and scrapes can stop you quicker and say, right here. Walk up on big community scrape, rubs all around it, overhanging limbs rubbed and leaves in the scrapes. Susie Q's put her mark in that scrape. I'm throwing anchor there 20, 30 minutes. That's how I killed Big John. I walked upon this big scrape, big rub on a live oak, and a few little old sprinkles of doe pellets, and Susie Q had said, come find me, big boy. When I saw her little stamp and the little wet puddle she pissed down right now, I knew it was going to be pay dirt. Sure enough, I rattled Big John right up. High noon, pouring rain. That press sign from a doe in a scrape, don't go anywhere for half an hour. He's going to be back there and check that and find that. Yeah, that's a definite spot to sit and rattle, stay a while.
Now, is that any scrapes and all scrapes, or is there certain types that like you can kind of call out, like, okay, this doesn't look as good as, you know, I've seen over here? Or is it just every time you see a scrape, you're just kind of...
I think the bigger the better. It's in the major intersection. I've got a picture with me holding up 4 fingers. There's 4 monster community scrapes right there together inside about an 8-yard circle. And we rattled up a 25-inch spread deer. I shot him low in the leg at 40 yards through the leg and thought maybe I got the artery in the leg and find him, but he's a young deer, but I was that much spread. I had to put an area in him, and didn't recover that deer, but that was part of his activity there, that multiple scrape.
I don't understand how you say that so fluently. You know, 25-inch spread, that's
That's
a
like
monster.
2 arms. The guy with me said he was 27, and I said, no, he wasn't. He was 25.
Oh.
I mean, that's monster. What's out with maybe 20? You think that is 20?
He's full 20 inches inside. The thing about widespread deer is typically they've got a lesser upstairs. Most deer that are real wide are short tine and thin on their points. Now, if you're talking about a big one, you know, when he's massive all the way out and got long tines, you know, you ain't going to play with him with a bow and arrow. You're going to shoot him. You know, that's when you grab the rifle.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the you said there was a hunt that you two went on together that you killed 3 bucks on. What was that like from your perspective? Was that a 16-day hunt? What was that like?
That was the 16-day hunt, the second
the one I
Kennedy
got
hunt.
the 3.
The 3 big deer you killed on that second Kennedy
You know,
hunt.
I was, to me, I just had some bad luck. Because, I mean, Charlie would take these people on hunts, and there's no way they'd get a 170, a 78, a 55, a 60-something. But most of the time it was above 60s. And whenever I went on that first 14-day hunt, we just didn't see anything.
Well,
I mean, we saw probably 200 bucks at least.
See, you say that doesn't even sound real. That's incredible. 200 bucks in 14 days.
Roy's not lying.
That's insane.
It's ridiculous. I mean, just like I said, the first morning I rolled over and the horns just clicked together. I looked out. There's about 3 bucks looking at me.
Now, how big were those
and we
bucks?
wasn't even.
They're just 18-inch spread deer.
Oh, just my biggest buck.
I mean, they're nice. I'd say, I'm going to get this. And Charlie, no, you ain't going to get that one. We didn't come for that. And then we ended up getting those 3, and every one of them was 140.
Yeah, but they were beautiful, pretty bucks. One had 12
Just
points.
like that one right there. That was a 140.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was one of them.
Yeah.
The other 2 are mounted. The other 2 were pretty and shoulder mounted them. They're in his condo in Arlington. Yeah, I forgot that rattling horn. We ended up making rattling horns out of one of them. But when a 140 10-point buck with an 18, 19-inch spread comes running in at you point blank, this freezes right on you. I don't care who you are, how many times you've done it. That makes you want to shoot the hell out of him, you know. It's what you're there for, see one do that. And Roy got to see it over and over and over, and finally I couldn't control him anymore. And I said, well, shoot that son of a bitch, you know. He'd bang, drop him, you know.
So you were rattling for him, and he was on the gun? Is that how it worked?
Yeah.
Okay. That's...
Is it something that you guys would basically be side by side, or would you be a little bit back so they wouldn't hold up?
In the brush, I'd put him 50, 60 yards downwind. I'd say walk dude downwind 50 yards minimum, maybe 60, wherever it looks good. If you can see 30, 40 more yards downwind of you, that's where to park it. And like I said, first day doing that, he saw 48. I saw one of them. I mean, that's how smart those brush deer are. But in the Kennedy, it's a different situation, you know. They'll be doing this. They'll half circle you. So you got to look here. You don't have to worry about, you know, upwind. You got to look down here in this bottom half of the circle. They're going to do this, half moon you every time, come in on you that way.
Listen, guys, we wouldn't be able to do the podcast if it wasn't for you all. So we just want to say that you guys are greatly appreciated, and thank you for following along each week.
And speaking of support, we are partnered with Out on a Limb Manufacturing, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, Matt and Chase are great, down-to-earth guys, and they make some of the best saddle hunting products out there. Whether you're looking for a set of climbing sticks or a mobile, lightweight, hang-on tree stand, or maybe you're even a one-sticker.
You mean tree Pilates?
Yes, tree Pilates. If you've been to the grocery store or the gas station lately, you know that Uncle Joe is doing his absolute worst to take all your money. That's why we need hunting gear that lasts year after year. And trust me, I've been rocking the same Out on a Limb Shakar climbing sticks for 4 years and the Ridge Runner 2.0 saddle hunting platform for a few years as well. This gear is built to last.
We can confidently say that Out on a Limb is the best bang for your buck.
And it's the best gear if you want to deflate a big old buck.
Ooh. Make sure you use code HNTA15 at outonalimbmfg.com for 15% off anything on their website.
So if you can show them the same support that you guys show us, please go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA15 for 15% off at checkout. Now let's get back to the podcast.
What was your rattling sequence like? Were you just hitting together as hard as you can, or
in the Kennedy, you can get away with rattling lengths of time because you're pulling them from a long distance sometimes, and they'll keep coming as long as they're still hearing them horns, and you can let off of them, and they'll show up after a while. But man, I'm telling you, in the brush, George taught me this. He said, "Be brief over there. Don't stay on the horns. He'll come out on you, and you'll see you. He'll have a pinpoint spot to look, and he'll see you. And if he sees you, he's gone. You won't ever get shot off." That's the way those deer are. They just turn right back around and shoot and go. He said, "Cruise, and throw the horns down and be ready." And he said on the second rattle, even quicker, "Cruise, and just be ready." Because those big bucks will come if it sounds brief. It's more authentic. I've heard a lot of fights. They're brief. Cruise. Maybe you'll hear it clatter coming apart. One's done whip the other one on the first slam usually. They're very brief. Their fights are very brief most of the time.
Short but violent.
Rough. Just like bighorn sheep, they'll slam. You know, you'll hear that first big clash, and you hear them break up, and one may have got hurt bad, and he's already had enough.
I've never heard, two bucks going at it in my life, and I put in quite a bit of hours, but yeah, it's just something that, more like pressured deer like that. I mean, I just think that it doesn't happen very often, or at least those fights like that. Does that make sense?
Well, that's the difference in hunting hunted places and hunting something that's never been hunted. Mm-hmm. It's like when you're picking a bride, Do you want the girl that's had the whole football team, or do you want one that's never had any? If you're going to pick a bride, you don't want the whole pasture involved in it.
Well, if you look how dense those horns are, and you see like deer that break eye guards, break all different points, the sheer force it takes to break those suckers together, to break those off. I mean, I've seen some good fights with some deer, and it is a lot more violent than you think it is. I mean,
oh my gosh,
they get after it.
Nothing more vicious. Cat fights aren't that vicious. Whitetail buck fights are one of the most vicious things I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it'll scare you.
How does that affect the way you call them? Did you cut the eye guards off of y'all's rattling horns, and do you beat them as hard as you can, but shortly, or what does your calling sequence actually look like? I know Jake was just talking about that.
Well, I did all the rattling for Roy, and he watched me, and I did it basically the same way all along. It's loud and hard and fairly brief in the Kennedy, but over there in the brush, it's a big clash. And once they're coming, they're coming. I'd wait about 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes, hit them again. Like I say, you don't want to be on him when he shows up. He'll spot you immediately. You got to be prepared to shoot.
So let's say if we were looking straight north, you hit those horns, you're immediately looking at your half crescent from downwind. That's how every one of those bucks.
They're all going to come in on the bottom half of the circle. That buck he killed, that one was up on a hill, and he was bed there. That's why he came to me first. I was between him and Roy, and he just came down through that thick shit. I just put my face down and hid where he couldn't see me and spook. I was unarmed. I was just looking at his feet as he walked by under my toboggan. And I said, man, I hope Roy gets a shot at him. I knew he was a shooter. So I let him get out of sight. And I just did my doe call. Ah! Ah! Boy, and I mean, Roy said within 15 seconds, he showed up all bristled up, looking everywhere, right on top of him. Bang!
I know you're talking about brush country, but is this mainly big seas of grass and thick bottoms full of trees, or like if you had to paint the picture of like what it was like hunting in South Texas, what is that like?
Entirely different from the coast to the desert. Coastline's live oak, mesquite, 50-50, sometimes mostly live oak. But over in the brush, it's cat claw, bright black brush, wahia, mesquite, big heavy native mesquite. All kinds of different cactus, jelly bean cactus. Remember them old jelly bean cactus? You walk past them, you had to stop and hold it bent back for your buddy to come on through too, because when you let go of that thing, it'd get you, and it'd be nasty. And one time I let go of one too soon, and it went out past me, and then it came back, slapped me in the back of the calf, and it put me on the ground. It buried all kinds of them long 1-inch thorns on them jelly beans right in the back of my calf. It just put me on the knees. It took a while to get them out.
So yeah, it was interesting. I was in Central Texas scouting some public land the other day, and I came over this big field. It's probably a foot tall with grass, and I came over into this ravine, and it was mesquites. There was just thick mesquites all through this bottom, and I was like, man, I've been seeing some deer sign along this creek, and I peeked over one of these ridge, and there were 60 deer bedded in those mesquites. And you, as a traditional whitetail hunter, you walk through, you want big trees, you want creeks, you want valleys, all the topography. In this little bitty field with a bunch of mesquites, I look over and they're bedded under each one of those mesquites, because you always wonder, why would a deer want to be in habitat like this, right? It's not what you see on TV or Midwestern hunting. And then I come over that ridge and there's 60 of them just on every mesquite tree. There's a deer under it. It's just a different type of environment. It's so interesting, so different.
During hard times for food, they eat those beans, and that may have been the food source they provided. Might have been something to do with it too.
So earlier when we were flipping through that book, you actually showed us the picture of your drive man, and so is he the same drive man that dropped you two off as well?
Yeah.
Or did you?
Yeah, Reggie.
Okay.
I don't know if he's still alive or not, but Reggie was the best.
Yeah.
He's Hawaiian.
Yeah, he was a genius. Now I'm telling you.
Now, did you know him?
No, I did.
No, I didn't know him.
Okay, I didn't know if you knew him prior to hunting with Charlie or not.
Yeah. See, I'd known Reggie the whole time I'd been living in Kingsville. I met him early on. Somebody that I used to get a little weed from, knew him, and he introduced me. And after that, me and Reggie bonded. I like smart people, you know, and I could tell right
That's why
away.
you like us so much, I guess.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
Well, he was also a connoisseur of some good music and stuff, and you know, I really like going over and listening to albums with Reggie. Burn One, you know. And I knew right off we clicked. He was cool. And then when I started asking him to take me and drop me off and pick me up on those hunts, he liked the thrill, you know.
And then we'd tip him $200 or $300.
See, we'd show up at Christmas every year when I started back out of retirement, throwing some money on him to buy his little girl Christmas presents with. And that's come in handy. You know, we'd throw a couple hundred on him for the trip down there and back. So for about an hour drive, you know, down there and back, and another hour drive to pick us up, he'd make $100 an hour, buy a little girl some Christmas presents. And if I had 2 or 3 different guys do that in the month of December and January, you know, he could help with some other bills.
So you guys would drive down from Arlington, and then you'd
he lived
you'd
in
park.
Bishop. He was 5 miles north of Kingsville in Bishop.
So you basically parked y'all's rig at his house, and then he was
There's
caravanning
a great hole
over
in
there.
the wall hangout too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd spend the night at his place.
Yep. We'd come out and clean up good before we head back to Fort Worth. You know.
You guys had you a nice little hotel and a chauffeur.
Yeah, we got our money's worth.
That's
So,
awesome.
How many days did you guys actually in total spend on the ranch?
36 days.
36
and
days
3
total.
hunts.
And how many deer do you think you've seen together in those 36 days?
500.
500.
Now,
I'd say 400 or 500.
400 to 500 minimum. You know, it was over $400 we rattled up.
what was the biggest one? I mean, and when I mean biggest, I mean I'm talking about presence, because me and Christian talked about this quite a bit. You know, there's high scoring deer, and then there's deer that maybe not score as much, but they just have that presence. You know, that you're like, I don't care what he scores, I'm taking him.
Yeah,
I know.
So
I saw one deer like that. It was real high. Charlie wished we'd have taken it. I said, hey, that's a high deer. Man, I've never seen one that high. Let me shoot it. No, we didn't come after that one.
well, that was that big 8, the grade 8. I mean, he's wanted to bust him, and I said, don't shoot on our last day in here, Thornton, you'll get us caught. He said, you think it's that big a deal? And I said, yeah, I do. He goes, you're probably right. We let that 8-point walk off. He had 13-inch back tines. His whole rack was massive. He was just a blockbuster. I mean, boss 8-point. Straight 8, you know. He didn't seem to have big base weight, but he was massive way up and out, you know. Shooter, you know, but not on the last day. That was late afternoon, late evening before we were to come to the highway the last 6 miles. And I said, we can't shoot that deer.
How do you think your hunting would have changed if, you know, let's just say they didn't ever get thermals, they didn't ever adapt to the way they were going after you guys, but you guys had like satellite phones, and you could say, hey, I got a 150-inch 8-point in front of me right now. I'm gonna go ahead and shoot it. Pick me up in 3 days later. How do you think that would have changed the way you guys hunted? Think you would have shot more bucks that way?
I don't think there's anything that could have made me shoot more than what I did. I knew what it took to trip my trigger. I'd lower my standards when we were having a hard hunt, weren't seeing much, like he described shooting them 3 140-something bucks. It was time to shoot something, you know. I think it was the second evening when he killed that 12-point. And he goes, man, this is a really beautiful, nice deer. I'm happy with him, you know. You know, he wasn't an absolute giant trophy, but he was a beautiful deer.
Hey, I'll take a 140 any day of the week, let me
Oh,
tell you.
nice deer.
Did you guys see like any albino or melanistic deer while you're
Yeah, I
there?
have. I've seen one half white, off white, and then one pure white doe.
Really?
Out of all them years, just
You know, talking about a albino, I've got pictures of one I raised out here.
Oh, really?
That's
Yeah.
right. I saw it as a fawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I told him that looks like a fallow deer, and then I got to looking at the
No,
ear-
it's not
ear
it
feature.
wasn't a fallow.
I know, but I got to looking at the ear features and all, and I go, he's right. That's a white-tailed doe.
That's cool.
What's your stance on those? Like, would you ever shoot one?
I shot the off-white one, but I hit a bush. It moved, and I pulled with it and shot through a bush and blew a big old, it blew a hole that big in front shoulder, and I was sick about it. I go, no, I don't even want her. You know, but she was light bulb white. She wasn't pure white.
Like a piebald kind of?
Dingy, little dingy. I got a picture of it. I'll show you. When we get to the shop. I'll show you a picture of it.
There was a one I saw on Facebook. I think it was last year. That was like it was albino, but it was also 150 inches. Like that's a double. That is a double trophy.
You know, mentioning that's bringing back a buck I saw at a long distance, and me and Roy were together on that first hunt, I believe, and we were on a big high sand dune, but we were looking out into the middle of the county. And as the deer began to move late that evening, I saw one what looked like a really big mature buck, and he was largely white. He stood out, the sun was on him, but he was very clearly a whitish deer. But he was 1,000 or more yards away, and the sun was almost down, and I thought, I don't even have time to try to make a stalk on that deer. But I thought, man, that's dangerous getting out in that wide open area. I mean, it's just sand dunes and grassland prairies, and I thought, I don't really need to even be getting out there to take a closer look even, you know, see if I wanted him or not. But
Now there's a big muley right there.
Ooh.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah, I'd be taking a shot at that one. That's awesome.
Dead deer. We stood on that dune one evening, and Roy goes, big country, big country. I mean, that's how vast the Kennedy was. We were just a speck in the middle of it.
I mean, there's deer in there that had never seen a human.
That's it.
We try to chase that feeling. Like we've hunted places that are hundreds of thousands of acres, you know, in the mountains in Oklahoma and stuff, and it just, I can't imagine some of the stuff you guys are running, because we feel, you know, you feel small and wild just going and doing something like that. I mean, and what you guys are doing is on a whole nother level. You're backpack Western hunting for whitetail. That is a very unique style, and that's awesome.
It's the most fair chase form of hunting you can go after them with, you know. Do it on foot all the way. You know, my buddy Big L that's dead now, he said the ultimate hunt would be to leave Arlington, Texas on foot and walk 465 miles to the Kennedy and hit it and hunt it and kill a trophy buck, jerk the meat, take it all back in your pack and walk all the way back to Arlington, Texas. He said, you do that, you'd be a sure enough whitetail deer hunter.
Yeah, it's a 6-month hunt.
It'd take you half a year to get down there, let alone back, you know.
Yeah, we got to see this. Obviously, Roy's been gracious in showing us this place today, and it's been awesome. We got to go down and crappie fish earlier, but it was funny. You were talking about some stories you've had on this place here, and one of the ones I wrote down earlier was when you were talking about catfishing on the pulling that one out and you falling in the water. Do you want to tell that story?
You talking about running the trot line?
Yeah.
Well, that's a strange story. It's half spiritual, but I've told it to a game warden, so why not? There's a guy up here named Timmy Hopkins. I've mentioned him before on some previous podcasts. He's outlaw, Wise County outlaw, and I was up here writing part 1 of the book in 2002, and he brought a barrel net over here. I'd never been around a barrel net before. It fascinated me, and I thought, man, it sounded like a lot of fun to me, you know, run a barrel net full of fish. And so he had it on a lead tied to a rock, not the dock, where you could just throw a lead drag out there and catch that lead to it and pull it in. And I got a hold of it at 5 a.m. Woke up, it was pitch dark, no moon, no stars, black night, and I thought, I'm going to check that barrel net. So I got a hold of it, and I got it pulled up there, and I mean, it's pulling like hell. It's got a 40, 50-pound yellow cat in it. I just knew it. And Roy and I had sank 3 or 4 years earlier. We'd sank about 9 cedar trees we'd cut and buried under the dock to create good fishing. And they had had time to rot all the limbs off of them, or nothing but a trunk. One of those was hung on that burl net, so I got a hold of it first, because that's what came to me first, and I was using it to pull the burl net on in, because it was hung up. And I mean, that fish is fighting me like hell, and I turned around and I put that trunk, the base of the trunk, under one arm, and I'd squat and lean, put all my body weight on it, and it'd level up, and then I could lean back and drag it about a foot, 18 inches each time, and about the 3rd or 4th time that I bared all my weight on it, it snapped. It was rotten. It snapped in half, and when it did, I folded it up like a pocket knife. Butt first went down through that boat slip and hit that angle iron. The last thing I heard was that angle iron hit me in the back of the skull. It's clang, out cold. When I came to, I'm halfway to the bottom of the lake. I mean, it's pitch dark, and I'm 10, 12 feet down. And the reason I didn't take on water was because I was so limp. I was out cold. and I could hear my bubbles coming out of my lungs, you know, just blub, 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 blub. It's the first thing I noticed when I came to. I looked up above me, and in the pitch dark, I could see a full image of myself, approximately 2 feet above me. And as I looked up at it, I said, no. I mean, my spirit had already left my body. And I started dog paddling straight up to catch up with my spirit. And about that 10 or 12 foot time period, I caught up with it just as I hit the surface, and I just reunited with my spirit. It came back into my body, and I burst up out of the water and just sucking air and trying to get my breath spitting and sputtering and all. And then the shoe came up beside me and another shoe, and then I was like madder than hell. I felt like I'd almost died. I'd almost drowned, and I almost got killed over that stupid barrel net. So I got mad. I got a hold of it. I wanted that fish, but worse. So I got a hold of him, pulled, and he got out. He must have only got in that first throat and had not got into the back sock where there's no way they can get out. So he got away then, and I was really mad. So the next morning, I wrote some more on the story, and I got outside there in the boat slip and was fishing for crappie. And I had a guy named Robert Wiggum that was coming up every day about 10:30 from Fort Worth, and he was welding, replacing cross members, these square tubings in that walkway of the old dock. And Robert came just stampeding down that deck, down the walkway. And I looked out, and he saw me, and he goes, CB, you okay? I said, yeah, why? I turned around and showed him my back. My back had blood all down it from where that 1-inch gash where it hit me all the way to the skull, cut me wide open. And he goes, what happened? I said, man, it's a long story. But he said he had had a dream that I had been drowned and found hung in the trot line between the two docks with the life jacket on, but, drowned. And I said, really? He goes, that's why I'm up here early today. He goes, I couldn't stay and wonder about it. I had to come see you. So I didn't have a phone. And he said, what time did that happen? I said, 5 a.m. He said, that's exactly when I had that dream and woke up and thought you were dead. So there was something telepathic in the spirit realm to him. And I told Chris Dowdy, State Game Warden Chris Dowdy, about that one time on a boat ride with him from the river above here. He loaned me a cast net that day, and he come brought me down here. And I told him that story on the way in, and he said, well, at least your spirit was going up.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, at least my spirit was going up, not down, huh?
Headed the right direction.
But I've nearly been killed here two other times. Remember when you got me electrocuted on that, changing that light bulb on the street lamp? Like the fried me, he was flipping breakers trying to get it in the right spot, and man, it just sucked my hand up against that fixture and electrocuting the shit out of me. I couldn't get loose first try, and then I just ripped my hand loose, and it just cut me wide open on those posts up there. I never knew electricity could do that, but it just sucked my hand to those posts of contacts. And he flipped the breaker right off, simultaneous in it, but I got up the flagpole trying to change the flag rope out one time. Remember that? I got up there on that flagpole, and it's blowing like hell, and I ran out of strength. I climbed the top of the ladder and did about 10, 12 feet of the pole, just scissoring on my way up. I roped my mount, and I was going to replace that old rope with a new rope. I realized when I got near the top, I said, I'm not going to have enough strength left to make it back down to the ladder after I fix the rope. I just back down, and I called the fire department and have them come out and put that rope back for you, thinking I'm not going to fall off that pole and die.
Not worth it. You were showing us pictures in the book earlier was y'all's hunt in Mexico. What can you tell a little bit of that story? How you kind of ended up in Mexico City, and then how you guys came together for a hunt down there?
You want to tell that, or you want me to?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, I took a job offer, I think it was 94, to go to Mexico City and form a partnership with a dentist down there that was also a taxidermist. And he guided hunts. He was a #1 poacher of jaguar, and his brother was #2, and then he was also #2 poacher of desert bighorn, and his brother Antonio was #2 of that.
How do you get the title of #1 and #2 poacher?
Because all of the kingpin authorities, all of the big money guys in the government ranked them that.
Oh, okay.
They'd all taken, and here's a big tattletale story on the Dallas Safari Club. Many of those big-name Dallas Safari Club men in the Don Corley generation, and he's the one that told me, him and Eduardo both told me, all these big elitists that have supposedly been legal beagle their whole life, and he even said he got sheep permits. Didn't say it was outlaw or not, but I suspect he went with them. It was a poach deal. Old T.O. Clayburg hunted desert bighorn with them in the Sonora, Baja California desert, okay, down there in the peninsula. So, as far as I'm concerned, they were all breaking the game laws. So they could, they can't point the finger at me. In fact, a lot of them liked me when they began to know about me and hear my stories from the first 7 years. Some of them were buddies to me. Hey, Beatty, got any good stories? They wanted to hear them. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got a little outlaw streak in their blood. And so, I got down there, formed the partnership. One of the ways they taught me to go on was to get to hunt the jaguar, get to hunt the ocellated turkey, get the desert bighorn. I was to get to do some big-time hunting, outlaw, whatever. It didn't matter to me, I trusted them being able to get away with it. So get down there and we formed this world-class taxidermy, we called it. World-class taxidermia. Well, we put in ads in big-time World Safari Club magazines and stuff. Valladolid, Mexico chapter of Dallas Safari Club, or Safari Club International, was involved in it. And I go on this hunt and bring Roy as my guest. So he comes as a guest getting to hunt ocellated turkey, maybe shoot a jaguar, whatever. And Eduardo, my associate, didn't think I had the guts to go after a jaguar with my longbow. So he pulled a trick on me. He said, listen, come over here. He kind of prepped me the night before. I think we've been figuring out where to take you for the jaguar. He said, the one's been seen in a certain area up a certain road. And he said, one of them's been seen was black. Well, I'm really excited then. I think I'm going to get to go after a black jaguar. That's rare. Black panther, rare. Well, he tells me, if you hear this sound, he said, that's the jaguar. They're mating this time of year in the spring rainy season. He said, you'll be able to sneak up on them. He said, go after them. Let's see if you got the balls to kill a jaguar with your bow. I said, all right. So the next morning, Roy is coming this way with his guide. I had just come around nearly to him and shot a spider monkey with my bow straight up, real high up in a tree, probably about a 70-foot shot straight up. I squared off, leaned way back, got a good straight line on him and fired. He was up there just mocking me. And I mean, click, click, right through the rib cage. I heard him hit ribs on the way in and out. Blood just started showering all over. You saw that blood, man. It was just all over the leaves down on the floor of the forest. And here comes Roy and his buddy. While I'm looking at all that blood trying to figure out where he went, he went up in some vines, hung up where you couldn't see him, and died. Never fell out of the tree, but he was mortally wounded. And I showed him all the blood, and his guy was like, man, let's get out of here. So he wanted away from that monkey being killed, so he wasn't supposed to shoot him. Oh. So him and Roy took off one way, I go another, and I get on this road that Eduardo had told me to take, and I start out through there, and all of a sudden I hear that sound. So I go after it. It's off in the brush, right off the road. I left, and it would move on me. And as I get close, it'd move again. And move again. And by the time I knew it, I was most of a mile out in the jungle. And I mean, them trees are 250, 300 feet tall. I mean, it's forest, rainforest. And I completely ignored any thought about finding my way back to that road, because each time I thought I was fixing to get to kill him. I thought I was going to get to make the shot. And then they'd move on me again just before I could get an eye on them and get a shot. So I went a long way on several stalks. It was the most intense hunting, spot and stalk hunting I've ever done for any animal. And I mean, you can imagine how electrified I was, being that it was jaguar. The nature of the danger, the thrill was indescribable. All of a sudden, I get close on this final stalk, and I see this black mountain lion-sized tail hanging down. It was in range. I was fixing to get a shot. I've never been that excited before in my life. And I turned and looked at him at a certain angle to get a clear lane on the rib cage, and it turned around, and it was kind of starting to look funny to me, and I thought, something ain't right about that shape of that animal. And I looked, and I saw this pink, naked, saggy, hanging set of balls. And I said, that ain't no jaguar. And he turned around and looked at me, and sure enough, it was a howler monkey. And they're chimpanzee size nearly, with a long mountain lion looking tail. And I realized immediately Eduardo had pulled a trick on me. Well, I wanted to kill him. I got mad, and I said, I'm just going to shoot the son of a bitch. So I drew back, and I, not aiming for the rise. When you're shooting a 40, 50-degree angle up, your air is going to strike about 8, 10 inches high. And when I anchored and shot right over his back, he flipped and took off. And when he did, the other one came down the limb and looked at me. Well, I knocked the other out, so I'm going to shoot her. And I mean, I'm pulling down to allow for that high flight. And I didn't anchor. I just pulled through under her outline and let fly, but I was moving, and I shot right underneath her and buried her in the tree limb. Flipped and took off, and she shot out of there. Well, I'm out of arrows. I said, dadgummit, now what am I going to have to find my way back to camp? So I try, and I get lost. Finally, after wandering for, I don't know, a mile and a half, 2 miles, I hit a logging road, just an old paper company road. And I'm walking down it, and I've probably been on it for, 300, 400 yards, and I saw this set of tracks, and I go, maybe this tracks is one of our guides. And I went, well, it's just one set. Well, maybe it's one of our scouts. And I kept trying to tell myself that's what it was. I said, I got no choice. I got to find somebody that knows where I'm at and get me back to camp. I've got till dark to get out of the jungle, or I'm going to be eaten alive by the jaguars. I didn't have any more arrows. I'd been beating him with my longbow, stabbing him with a pocket knife. So I walk up on this backpack, and it's white burlap, weave sack, backpack, homemade. I've seen them on National Geographic one time. Headband, strap to support the weight. 2 big black jungle pheasant faison in the pack. And I saw this 2-liter bottle, and it was full of this water with blended almonds in it, slivers of almond in it. I said, this is not one of our guides. Pow! A shotgun blast goes off down below me 40, 50 yards. I said, I think I've just walked upon a poacher. Eduardo would warn me that there are poachers out there to beware. And sure enough, this guy comes up out of the woods in a minute, big old tall 6'6" Mayan Indian. I mean, he was rough. He's dragging this rocket deer up out there, and he's got this old long barrel shotgun. It looked like a 10 gauge. Found out later that they shoot them with rocks. They can't get lead. They can get primers, they can get powder, but they can't get lead. And they would go pick these little round rocks and hand load.
Make their own shotgun shells?
Make their own shotgun shells and kill stuff with rocks. Those holes in that rocket deer he brought up were just oddball keyhole shape. He'd killed the hell out of it with it, but it was up around noon then, and I told him, he talked to me, and I told him I was lost and didn't understand where my camp was. No tendencias campamento. And he goes, oh, see, okay. He says, muy peligroso in the jungle, la selva. He said, you got to get out by night. Got to get out by noche. Jaguar. I said, sí, tendencias. He said, vamos conmigo. Go with me. I'll take you to town. ¿Cuántos kilometers? 29 kilometers. And that's about 24 miles. He said, yeah, boy, we got to go. And I said, tengo mucho hambre. I was hungry. Noon. I was working up a good appetite. And he said, okay, traigo la carne and the venado. So I cut into that deer, got the underloins, cut the heart out, put them on a stick. He's building me a fire over there. We both ate meat, took off. Boy, we got to go. He knew how long it was going to take to get to town. 8 hours to town.
Of steady walking.
Solid. We didn't break. I think we took 1 5-minute brief break. He dipped in the bar ditch and threw water in his mouth and spit it back out. I wouldn't even do that. I was afraid of those amoeba Eduardo warned me about in the stagnant water down there. Hit it. I'm pouring sweat. I was so dehydrated by the time we hit town at sundown. I was about to give it up. I was ready to just throw anchor and pull over. Well, he got me to his house. His wife made me these 44-ounce plastic cups blended with watermelon and water together, mixed 50-50. I drank 2 of those, bang, bang. And then she was frying the lungs of the deer. He had kept everything else in it, and she took the lungs out. They fry up kind of like chicharroni. And I'd never eaten them before. I wanted to try them, so I ate them. They were delicious. And I had a plan because that town, I realized it was the same town that was the last town we went through before we went another 15 miles south to camp and cut back in about 20 miles to camp. So I knew where I was, and I figured go a mile south of town. There was a brand new concrete bridge. It had an abutment on it like this album of 4 to 6 inches maybe even. Yeah, because it was brand new, hadn't been feathered in yet. And so, you had to stop before you got up onto it. So I said, this is perfect. I'll sleep under the bridge and out of the rain. I'll wait for our buddies to come looking for us in the Jeep. And when they stop to go up on that abutment, I'll be able to identify them and wave them down, flag them down. So finally I thought it was one of our Jeeps, and it was not. And I was seen. I tried waving them down, and they just shot it, hit it, and ran. They went straight to the military checkpoint with about 20 soldiers at it. Told them we'd seen a crazy gringo down there under the bridge. So they come down there looking for me. Here comes this army truck with 18 to 20 men with automatic rifles in it up in the back of the truck, a bobtail-looking big, army truck. They crossed the brand new bridge, did a U-turn, circle back right to the corner I was at, put a big spotlight on that corner, and they said, "Gringo, vamos arriba, manos arriba, come out with your hands up." I come out, my hands up, and that bright light, and I thought I'd make one wrong move, I'm hamburger. I mean, all them guns were right on me. Roy sat back in camp worried sick about me, not knowing any of this is going on. And so finally, in the wee hours, the captain talked to me a minute. He knew pretty good English, and he goes, "Tell me your story. What are you doing here?" I told him I was lost hunting with my associate out of Mexico City, old deputy. And he goes, "Okay, go back under the bridge. When your friends come to look for you, we will tell them where you're at." So about 5 in the morning, here comes the chief guide of Lechuga, looked like old Charles Bronson. He pulls up, 2 army men in the back that had brought him back down there to me, and another guide. And so 5 of us turned around and went back to town, and he knew a lady owned a restaurant in town, and she fired up the grill and all and fried me some fried chicken and salad with ranch dressing. All of a sudden, I was eating like a king, 5 in the morning. And boy, they were glad to see me. "Charlie, Charlie," man, they kept patting me on the leg. They were so happy to find me because they thought I might be dead, eaten by jaguar. And I get back to camp, and Roy goes, "Come here, let me talk to you." He said, "They know you're mad at Eduardo. They know you want to kill him. You can probably kick his ass." He goes, "Don't do it." He goes, "They've already told Eduardo they will kill you if you come back mad and beat him up." That's how loyal they were to him being their boss on the guiding and all. And their hunting, that was their livelihood. Excuse me. They had to make money every year out of that hunting and guiding, or they were broke out in the jungle. So they said they would kill me if I come in swinging and beat Eduardo up. So Roy said, "Deal with this when you get back to Mexico City." He said, "They're going to kill you if you jump on him." And I mean, I was wanting to. I started to go over there and just bend him over, double knee him right in the face and sucker punch and a knee to the face and just beat the hell out of him. But his brother Antonio told me later after hearing this story, he said, "Eduardo is my brother, and I love him. But he said if he would have done that to me, he said I would still kill him. He put your life in danger." He said you would have been eaten by jaguar had you not tracked that poacher down and went with him to town. He said you were jaguar meat. And that part of the jungle's got a lot of them. So anyway, I go back 2 years later after I was caught, and Eduardo picked me up at the Cancun airport, and I'd gone down there to settle up with him on my leftover equipment that I left down there with a man named Pat Latham. He's, Pinal's Foundation for North American Wild Sheep, big bird collector, big bird hunter, quail hunter, flew his bird dog down there and all. Well, we get in the van at Cancun, and he says, "So you're famous in your country now?" And I said, "Well, kind of, a little bit, I guess, yeah." And he said, "Well, let me tell you something." He said, "Now you are famous in 2 countries. I said, "Eduardo, what are you talking about?" And he said, "In this country," he said, "it is customary to name a new road, a new building, a new bridge after a current event." I said, "What are you saying, Eduardo? Get to the point." He said, "Cabron, they named the fucking bridge after you." And I said, "What?" He goes, "Yes, Puente del Gringo, the bridge of the white man." He said, "The funny thing is, everybody calls it that." But he said, "Only a few people know why."
Oh, my gosh.
And then after that, we found that dead man.
Oh, God. When Roy was there, we crossed to the other side of the highway hunting over there, and then we came back, and as we left after dark, here's this van rolled up into the trees in the fence line area, and this guy's laying halfway across the last bit of bar ditch, and he prayed right as he died. He was in a praying position. His back was bent, and you could see it was swollen up. His back was broke, and he was sock-footed. He pulled his shoes off, I guess, driving, and fell asleep, lost control of the van. We got there before Eduardo, and then he come behind us. He had old Hubert Tumler with him that trip. And they pull up. Eduardo goes, "Everybody get out of here. Leave. Go now. Go back to the camp." And I said, shouldn't we stay and render aid? That's a law in our country. And he goes, no, hell no, get out of here. They will blame you for the wreck and his death. And I said, whatever, Dordo. We had to leave that dead man laying there unattended and just drive off, let the chips fall where they may. He said, we would all go to prison and be blamed for his death and be in prison the rest of our life.
Wow.
So you can't even stop and render aid to a wreck victim like that. Now, Mexico's a treacherous place to live, you know. But that was sad. That kind of bummed me out on the whole hunt. But, yeah, on that hunt with Latham, though, I busted a oscillated turkey. And it got up, man. I had a little 20 gauge. Dropped it at about 30 yards. And before I could get to it, that quail dog of his, old Flo, had it. I mean, she just biting the shit out of it. And I said, man, I'll beat that dog's ass. He's going to tear at my bird. And Pat came running up. And I said, I started to beat your dog's ass till I saw what she was thinking. And he said, what was she thinking? And I said, damn, the quail are big down here. And he said, no, this ain't her first rodeo. She's picked up a mini turkey.
Oh, man. So what? I'm not familiar with the jaguar stuff. There's a big Mexican jaguar. That's just what part of the country are you hunting?
The Yucatan Peninsula is full of jaguar, and then they range all the way through South America.
Oh my gosh!
They have quite a few deaths down
They're
there.
the most vicious predator of them all. They feed on humans just like they feed on, capybara and caiman, the little gators. They're top of the food chain.
So Roy, what were you thinking? Like, I guess how long into the prank were you guys not really worried about Charlie in the moment? And then when did that start turning around camp?
Whenever Charlie was in for like
While I was lost in the dark came.
Oh yeah, it was. It was frightening. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the jungle down there, man. I mean, you can't see 5 foot in front of you nearly, and to get lost in that, because they had the troops. They had already contacted the troops, ready to go in the morning.
Mm-hmm. What were they telling you? Were they telling you, just be prepared? Like, what was their mindset around the whole ordeal? Were they expecting to find, just pieces of them, or, was there hope that, you might actually see them again?
Well, we didn't know. We just, I mean, really, it always goes through your mind that you'll probably never see him again. Mm-hmm. That's one thing that always goes, and, you're always hoping you do, but he's over here in a foreign country and don't even know shit from China hardly.
Yeah.
It's myself, I didn't have very much hope in finding him.
Yeah. Well, is that the same trip that you got your monkey as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you all allowed to talk on that or no?
Yeah.
It wasn't nothing to it. My guide, we was out just walking and hunting, and we saw this monkey. I don't know what.
That's
it's
spider
monkey, I think. Monkey. And he said, "You want to shoot a monkey?" I said, "Well, I guess so, sure." Look at it, pam. It comes to the ground. I inspect it, look at it, bring it in. I was thinking it was gonna not even eat the thing. Mm-hmm. Because they was talking about eating monkey, and my guide said, "Yeah, bring it in."
How big are they?
Oh gosh,
he probably went 36
I
inches
could probably
long.
Hold it right here, and the tail would.
Yeah.
It's. I bet the body's not about like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
And they eat them?
Yeah, they eat the monkeys.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Did you all try it?
No.
Why not?
Eduardo said, "Get it out of camp. The game wardens come check us because they check him occasionally."
Really? I was really thinking that the guides were gonna fix that and eat it, but those other guys got so mad. We had to carry it off.
Yeah. Yeah, Eduardo pulling that prank on me bummed that hunt quite a bit.
Didn't get your jaguar.
No, I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't because it didn't work out with me and him, and I would have left the mount down there. You know, someone else would have had to take it. I wouldn't have brought it back. The only reason I was going to kill one was because I was living there. I lived there 3.5 years. I said, I'm going to have that sucker mounted in my apartment, slay the chicks. I just had to settle for slaying the chicks.
No jaguar. Oh, my gosh. So, Roy, I mean, if you look around your house, it looks like you've had some awesome adventures apart from whitetail hunting. What are some of the favorite things that you got to do, like in the hunting realm?
Let me tell you this one story of Charlie and I duck hunting. I mean, we were shooting ducks like you wouldn't believe. Oh, you just wouldn't believe the duck hunting we've been in. But we shot like 3 ducks, and they landed in the middle of a tank. I mean, it's colder than hell, ice on the water and everything. And this is how dedicated Charlie is. He says, I'm going to go get them ducks. And he broke ice and walked out there in that tank up to his neck to get 3 ducks.
No, thank you.
And I told him, I said, Charlie, you better get out of there. You're going to get hypothermia here. And I think he did get out just in time.
Yeah. Well, I climbed the tree in the middle of it. I had to stay in that mesquite tree for a while and thaw back out because I was locking up. I said, I heard my Spirit of God say, get in the tree now. And I climbed. I was on fire. When you hypothermia, you catch on fire.
Get real warm?
But it's worse than that. It's like scalding hot water's been poured all over you. And I just heard the voice, you know, get in the tree, get in it now. And I got out of the water. I barely pulled myself up in with nothing but my arm strength. My whole bottom had locked up. My legs froze. I stayed in that tree 45 minutes before I said, I think I can make it to bank now. And I said, I'm going to come on and I'm not going to look back. I threw the ducks to them while I was up there in that tree, you know. I got out. But, man, I was starting to lock up again as I got near bank. Cold water's nothing to play with. I had full coveralls on, thermal underwear underneath. We hunted in cold weather. And wet, you still get hypothermia. It penetrates you. Once you get wet, you've had it.
I've seen buddies swim through ponds to get 3 or 4 geese out of them when they're frozen. No, thank you. No, thank you. It ain't worth it.
I did that in high school once with Steve Cooper. And, I mean, I stripped. And I broke ice going in and dove out there and got 3 redheads and threw them, and I'd swim to the other one and throw it. I swam that tank a lot in the summer, skinny dipping. Well, I got to just where I could reach the ground, 4 feet deep, and I locked up and my feet hit the ground. So I just bow-legged walked on up out of there. He goes, you going to be all right? I said, I don't know. I was kind of crouched, froze, bent over. I began to thaw out and stand up. He goes, man, you're bleeding. I said, what? He said, look at your legs. I was slashed across the shins 4 or 5 places on both legs. When I ran in, I was breaking that ice, and that sheet ice was cutting me all the way to the bone on the shins. And, you know, that's the last time I wanted to do that. I was about to retire on that duck retrieving. And after that, me and Roy got an old gal. We called her Bird Dog. She'd come up here with us. All right, Bird Dog, get them duck. And we'd shoot them ducks up and send her down there and let her wait out in the cold, hard wind from to blow the bank and pick them up. She'd come back with that ducks, you know.
How'd you talk him into doing that?
Yeah, that was Roy's girlfriend. He had her pistol whipped or something.
Old Bird Dog.
Yeah, she was a good gal. I think that's what I need, me. I need another Bird Dog.
Hey guys, I did want to mention that my friends over at Exodus just launched an awesome new SD camera, the Exodus 4K Lift Ultra. This is anything but a standard SD camera. It offers 4K video at 30 frames per second with audio. It has dual lens with dedicated nighttime and daytime image sensors. And one of the things that I think makes this camera really unique is it offers rechargeable 18650 batteries. The camera also has a 2-inch LCD screen, so you never have to worry if it's pointed in the right direction or your camera sitting looking at the right spot. The Lift series has been the cornerstone of Exodus since they launched it over 9 years ago, and this 4K Ultra is no different. Make sure to use code HA4K to save $50 off the new Lift 4K Ultra at checkout. Once again, if you want to support the podcast and our friends over at Exodus, make sure to use code HA4K for $50 off the new Lift 4K Ultra at checkout at ExodusOutdoorGear.com. Now let's get back to the podcast.
At the Hunter's Advantage, we live by the KISS slogan.
You were not supposed to tell them that.
No, I meant we like to keep it simple, stupid. All jokes aside, Exodus is the definition of keeping it simple. Let's say you aren't really sure what arrow setup you should run. The Exodus Arrow Builder will help you build the right arrows for your exact setup.
Or if you don't have time to change those trail cam batteries in the dog days of summer, Exodus has a great selection of cell cameras and regular trail cameras. And if you pair them with one of their solar panels, you'll be set for a long while. I've shot over a dozen deer and a big old black bear in Saskatchewan with these arrows, and I trust them to fly right and get the job done. And they have something for everyone with the Exodus NIS micro diameter arrows or the Exodus MMTs.
So if you want to save money on Exodus arrows, cell cameras, or anything else they got on their website, make sure to check out ExodusOutdoorGear.com and use code HA10 for 10% off.
Once again, that's ExodusOutdoorGear.com, and make sure to use code HA10 for 10% off at checkout. Now let's get back to the podcast. Roy, going back to that, what is some of your favorite memories or hunts that you've been on non-whitetail related? You know, you walk through this house, it's pretty spectacular.
Well, I've enjoyed my pheasant hunts. You know, I used to go pheasant hunting and sandhill crane hunts. You know, goose hunts.
Mm-hmm.
So you're mainly a bird guy. Like you would rather go bird hunting than, let's say, you know, the caribou or the moose or anything like that.
Well, he loved bird hunting because he shot circles around me most of the time.
That's how I am with the shotgun.
I got him one day.
Tragic.
One day wasn't his day, and I beat him knocking ducks down. And he said, "I can't believe I missed today." And I said, "I don't either." He usually didn't miss nothing there on the wing, you know.
Charlie, I'm curious. You know, we were talking obviously. Every time we talk to you, it's and we see it in the comments all the time. When's part 2 coming? When's part 2 coming? Do you have an answer for that for people that are sitting around curious?
Yeah, I'm real dead set that I'm going to have it by June 1, 1st of summer. I'm going to have it by 1st of summer. I'm fixing to make that happen.
When?
By the 1st of summer. You know, June 1st gets here, it'll be out. Yeah, I'm going to come out with it this year. You know, if the Lord doesn't return and take the whole planet away from all of us, you know.
It's kind of seeming like that.
It could happen. Like they say. Don't say, let us go into town and buy and sell and trade. Say, if the Lord tarries, let us go into town and buy and sell and trade, because he can come back any time. Mm-hmm. You know, even so, come quickly, Lord Jesus. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to pull it off. Got a lot of writing done and got some to go. But I'm going to see about getting it by June 1st.
Or we're going to have to lock you in a room and throw away the key?
I'm doing that to myself. You know, that's how I get something done, is lock the doors and get it done. I don't answer my phone much during the day.
Are there any stories? You know, we've obviously talked to you several times on the podcast, and it's real easy to, you know, you're a natural storyteller, so you hear them all the time. But are there any stories that come to mind that we haven't talked about that you think are interesting? Any hunts that are in part 2? Obviously, you don't have to spill too many beans, but is there any that come to mind that are interesting that you've been thinking about recently?
Yeah, there's a lot of stories. That's the problem with trying to just pick one out and tell it, because there's so many. There's so many more stories coming. I think, you know, some of the funny stuff is what I like, you know. I think back and think of something funny. I know that was real funny when Roy got lost and stayed on that sand dune waiting for me. Finally showed up, caught up with him. And I mean, when I got to him, I just slapped him on the shoulder and I said, "Tag, you're it." Walked right by him. He goes, "No, wait, don't run off." He said, "You know, I learned my lesson."
Yeah.
You know, the funny stuff that, you know, we're about to kill each other one minute, and the next minute we're laughing our ass off about the situation. You know, that's the stuff that means something to me. That's lasting memories. You know, and we just become better friends. You know, because of it. Hilarious.
Well, it sounds like he was a pretty good outlaw hunting partner. What do you have any terrible hunting partners that you think about that you? I mean, you obviously don't got to say by name, but are there any ones that ring a bell the opposite way?
Pat.
No, I took a lifelong friend from high school junior high and high school, Ski Shazinski. And Ski probably let the biggest Kennedy Ranch buck go I've ever seen. He's 10 feet from us. Come up behind both of us. But he was looking at him, and I couldn't see him. I had my back to him. I saw the look on his face. And when I saw the look on his face, I knew what it was. He was looking at a giant deer that walked up so quiet behind me, I didn't hear him. I didn't hear him at 10 feet when he come to stop. I turned my head around, and he ducked and wheeled out of there. I had one straight look at him for a split second. He was a 200-inch deer. He had multiple forks and handlebars. He was a mule deer-looking range. He had wide, tall, 15-inch link tine stuff. And he took off running, and 30 yards, you could still see to shoot at him running, but Ski still just froze looking at him. He's buck fevered. I just grabbed the gun away from him and ran over there, and I could just make out a buck crossing one little hole, and I saw the top, and I go, that's not the same deer. Because it looked, the part I saw was just an 8-point look inside, but then here came the rest of the rack. I got on him, and he's still moving, and I almost crossed that hole completely, and I got one off in his liver. Back. We never did find him. I wanted to kill Ski. He wanted to kill me. He said, you ever take the gun away from me like that? I'm going to kill you. And I said, Ski, you were buck fevered, you know. And to this day, we're both sick. We're both agreeing. He's the biggest deer that any of us have ever brought out of there, and he got away. I put a bullet in him. He went somewhere and died. But I hit him just probably back at the tail of the liver. I mean, it was almost a gut shot. It was the tail of the ribs, about the last ribs where I hit him. I know where it was when it went off, when no blood had ought to follow. It was thick grapevine, live oak, grapevines everywhere, and thick underbrush. And I mean, we were plowing through it looking for any sign of blood, never a drop of blood. I know I hit him. I had it on part of the body when it went off. I had about a 40-yard shot, snapshot. But that deer makes me sick to this day.
Typical?
No, he was non-typical. He was a 200-something inch non-typical, just over 200. I'm sick. I can show you that Charlie Hogue buck, very much like that deer. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that deer yet?
I think you've sent it to us on Instagram.
I posted a picture of it that I finally got from a guy that sent that to me. That's what he looked like. He looked like a mule deer whitetail cross. You know, just beautiful deer, big deer.
What made him non-typical? What was non-typical
The
about
forks and a couple of little handlebars way up high. But what was weird about him was he skyrocketed right straight up out of the head. The beams were so high up before they flared. He was just enormous. He had knobby stuff on his bases and up towards the eye guards. He had a lot of points. I think he had over 22 or 3 points.
Oh, my God.
I never will forget that buck. I was sick about it. You know, I'm sick telling it, but I'll never forget that deer. Ski can tell you about it. He'll tell you the same thing I'm saying. He's still alive. He lives in Houston now, but I'd like to have y'all interview Ski. Let him tell you about that deer.
That's a heck of a buck. What's the biggest body deer you've ever seen come out of the Kennedy?
They don't weigh much over 160 to 70-pound field dress. It's rare that you see one that big. I've seen something like that unicorn buck. Mm-hmm. That was as big bodied as they get, and he was red. He's sandy colored. Usually it's the Big John with the black body and the russet forehead and the raccoon mask. Those are the ones that'll weigh 170 field dress. But that unicorn buck at 5.5, he's full grown. His body was grown. His bones were hard. That deer was massive. It was late January when I shot him, and he was just huge, bull-necked and muscled up. Boy, he was huge. That's the one I broke both shoulders at the heart, and he plowed a big old trench about 40 yards before he died and gave it up. With his heart blown completely out.
Do you have any more stories about, you know, maybe one that your partner wounded or any that you wounded that still make you sick? Obviously, he's 200-inch non-typical to do that to you. But any other ones like that got away that were hit?
No, I can't right offhand think of one that was a cripple that got away, you know. As I'm finishing the writing, some stuff could come to me, but, you know, following the albums as my outline, because I got so many pictures. I mean, I really got into taking a lot of pictures, you know, this last few years. I've got endless pictures, and I'm going to show those to you when we pass through my office, you know. But, yeah, there's so many stories, I can't just focus and pick one out of the quiver. It's hard to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Roy, did you ever get buck fever?
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, you're stepping on his toes now. I'm going to tell on him. You just reminded me of one of the great ones. Yeah. You going to tell it?
Oh, yeah. That one time I got I mean, I shot at this deer until I run out of shells.
No, that's another one.
And I still think Charlie moved the scope on me because he wanted just to see me get buck fever.
No, that's not what happened.
And I run out of shells. And Charlie says, go back and get some more shells. And because I don't know where they was at the time. They must have been 20, 30 foot from us or something.
Where we left the backpacks and stopped.
And I went back and got some more shells.
But you did
Did
finish
you
him.
shoot him?
No, you finished him.
No.
I said, now calm down, make it count. He ain't going nowhere. He's
Yeah,
hit. He's
he
hit
said,
and he's
calm
hurt.
down, take it easy. And I shot again
Yeah, you got it.
and knocked him down. But I always blame Charlie for moving the scope.
Now, that's not the story I thought you were going to tell. Remember the last morning before we saw the big 8 that evening and passed him? Cracking daylight. We're rattling up bucks everywhere. A front had come on in, and they were coming like crazy. It had come in rainy the day before, and they were just coming everywhere. And I was saying, shoot one. He goes, I can't shoot good running. I said, well, hand me the gun. I'll shoot one of them. These big bucks were just blowing through in the blowing rain. Rain was just blanketing. It was so heavy, the rain out of the north, blowing hard northwest rain. So we bed down in our tent. Got hard. Weather got hard. And I said, let's get our tent and camp set. We did. Cracked daylight. It's cold and cloudy and dry. And I mean, bucks were coming on every rattle. A buck comes following a doe through this rattle. He's a huge 9-point. He's got double eye guards, and he's got a foot stanger high, one back time. And I'm going, let me get a picture first. I've got my telephoto out, and I'm trying to take a picture of him. I had a Pentax 1000mm, whatever lens in, $1,000 camera. But I go, wait. And he's on him, following him, 25, 30 yards. That doe's running ahead of him, but he's stopping and looking at us. And I go, click. Shoot him. Boom! The gun goes off. The buck just turns and runs. I said, you missed him. Shoot him again. So he bolts in another shell. I mean, he's rattled by then. The doe runs out through there, and I looked at Roy. I'm watching him, and I got tickled. And it didn't matter to me if we got him or not because it was so funny watching him buck fever. And I leaned over and I said, hey, Thornton. He said, yeah. I said, you want that buck? He said, yeah, I'm going to get him. I said, then shoot him. He's that buck fevered. And he goes, I'm going to. And I said, like hell you're going. I said, give me the damn gun. And I went after him, and the buck on that doe and ran into the brush, and I didn't get a shot. But I had a picture of him. I lost a stack of pictures of that hunt. I had some pictures of that deer, but he had a 12-inch out and down handlebar off one back tine come off up near the top, within 2 or 3 inches of a 12-inch tine coming out.
Off the G2?
Yeah, I picked up a shed one time of the same type rack with a big old high long stinger, throw tine, club shaped at the end. But it tickled the shit out of me. I mean, I just threw away the want to kill him. I didn't give it down. I let him run off. I could have took the gun and shot him quicker and got him. But I was so tickled with Thornton buck fever so bad, I just harassed him. And he goes, well, you said wait, and then you said shoot, and then you said wait, and then you said shoot. And I said, yeah, that's right. It's my fault you missed the son of a bitch. I'm blaming it back on him, too. But it was just funny as hell. And we started laughing, and we laughed all day, saying, yeah, I buck fevered. I said, you sure as hell did. I said, you buck fevered worse than Rainus, It happens. So, see, he's had 3 chances to kill Shooter. 170 mark type deer.
Is that what that one would have scored?
Well, he was pushing it. He was getting on up there.
I would have been buck fevered as well, trust me.
Yeah. He was a solid weight throughout the whole rack. He was a trophy deer. And real odd. Trophy deer. But the buck he saw on the first rattle in the Piloncillo, I believe we've got a picture of it. George killed it. George would go to the Piloncillo, and he had his gun sighted in for 400 yards because he was seeing bucks by getting up on those bluffs, those old Indian bluffs, and he'd look out over the cactus flat and could even see good in the big native mesquite. And he'd rattle from there, and he could see one coming, and when he hit a hole, he could get his shot off, and he was seeing them and taking shots at them at 400 yards, so he re-upped his rifle. But he had gone the next year after me and Roy had that Boone and Crockett, the one he told about. He thought he was going to go to the next opening, but he winded him and left. Never saw him again. Right above that, at the Pelon Seal Hill, then there's the mesa, long mesa. He got up on that. He killed that deer you let get away that day. He rattled him up, 174 net, 12 points typical, perfect. That's the deer Roy let get away, and the Pelon. George killed it the next year.
It's a monster. Is that part of the fun too? Is like bringing somebody in that you know is going to lose their crap when they see how cool the hunting is in there? Is that part of it, the fun for you?
I've had them scream. I just told about it on another podcast. That second cop, first rattle, $2. One's 23-inch spread, 10-point long eye guards. He hits a grapevine straight up in the air. Keeps his composure, knocks another arrow. He's shooting 80-pound longbow. He turns, stays quiet. Buck hits this opening with nothing but coastal clump grass and fog, and I couldn't see no more trees. It was just prairie. But he stopped, looked back. Arrow was big, high arc, 40 yards. Comes right down into the middle of one hand. Nothing but the fletching showing. And he just turned and looked at me as the buck ran off in the fog. And I said, that's a good hit. I think we're going to find him if you hit the femoral artery. And he just looked at me, and his face was just stretched. And he goes, unbelievable, man! Unfucking believable! He'd never seen nothing like that. I broke his cherry wide open on the first rattle. I mean, he just flipped completely out. Screamed. You know, someone could have been tracking us or something and heard that. You don't do that. But he lost it. And he did essentially the same thing. 2 days later, we got to the corner of the brush line down there further to the southeast, and I rattled a buck up at point blank, 7 to 8 yards. Hits a grapevine with it. I found that arrow later that year in January with Dennis Music hunting with me. We camped there. But second shot, I'm knocking. I told him, I said, I'm not knocking an arrow until you've killed a monster. Well, when he hit the grapevine that time, I said, screw it. You know, I'm gonna kill this deer. I don't want to let this deer get away. I could see he was a beautiful 170-something buck. I start knocking an arrow on this compound I had with me, and when he saw that, boy, he just sped up and knocked an arrow, and he bleeded him right in the throat, right under the white hair, left side, the return line. He was still getting blood to the brain and oxygen, and that deer went about 300 yards. And he went down, and it was great arterial blood, but he was still getting full flow to the brain, so that's why he didn't even go down. He just wheeled and took off. But there was just blood just everywhere, every heartbeat. Finally starts slowing down on bleeding. We get near the end of the blood trail. I said, go down the end of this live oak. I'm going to stay here. You come back this way towards me, and we'll meet in the middle. We'll pick up blood on these oak leaves here in this oak bar. He goes out towards the end, and right on the end, he jumped him. CB, there he is. Stop him. He took off running across. He expected me to be able to pull a magic wand out and tell the deer to stop, but I hollered at him, and I mean, he just went on across this clearing about 200 yards to another brush bar. He stalled out right outside of it and buckled, started to go down, and then he caught himself and went on in. So we left him alone a little while, let him stove up some, bleed down. I said, all right, let's go in. We go in there and see if he'd have listened to me, he'd have got to finish him. I ended up having to finish him. I said, look, go, we followed the blood up, and then the blood turned. I said, go on over the rise, get outside this brush bar, get in the soft sand where you can move quiet. And I said, pick a lane back up in here and stop on it. And then I'll come down the blood. I'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes head start. And I said, then I'll come down the blood trail and get him up on you. And when he crosses that hole, you'll have another shot. I'm going to stay on the blood. All right? You give me a couple of 3 minutes to get started. I'm going to take the path I just described. So I get outside the live oak, and I make my little, I'm hurrying my steps on soft sand, quiet but quick. Just as I see a good lane to shoot, I hear brush break, and he gets up, and he goes, there he is, CB. And I mean, I take a knee, and I draw that 80-pound, I think, 85-pound compound bow I was shooting, borrowed it from the first cop I'd taken. And I mean, as he comes out, I'm on him. When he turns and goes straight away from me, I shot him right in the ass, right in the right hand. Apparently, it did a lot of damage. It was a 4-way, had wings on that broadhead, and just a clean pass through. He come to me, and I said, I got air in him, just like you would have if you'd listen to me. He's arguing with me. Well, I didn't like that at all. So we walked outside the deal. We didn't have good blood because he had very little blood left in him. I just stuck another arrow right on the last drop of blood, and I said, we find him in the morning. So we go and camp up there on that Oak Bar Ridge where we jumped him the first time. He burnt the chili. I was mad at him. I said, don't burn that damn Allsticks chili. He had a little stove too hot and burnt the bottom. I don't even want it now, you know. So hearing game, we were right on the main game trail, kept waking us up all night. Nail gun kept blowing us, deer kept blowing us. So it breaks light, and I said, let's circle this clearing, see what we can see, and rattle a little bit, and then we'll go after your buck, find him. He'll be dead by tomorrow morning. We listened for coyotes all night, too. I said, if the coyotes get on him, we'll hear him. We'll be able to go right to him. So we circle, and there's this big 10-point on a doe with a big unicorn point coming up off one base, right just off the base. Big old 15-inch sword of Damocles. Had a palm on it. There were 3 bucks in that area that year that I saw that had unicorn points. We killed one of them. And he runs when the doe runs. And they moved a couple of times towards this oak mont, and there was a cathedral-looking entrance to it, pretty high, 12 feet or so. Well, they were 60 yards, but standing still. It was the last call. I drew, and it was my turn. He didn't have any business trying to shoot. And when I drew, I'm set and putting the pin I wanted where I wanted it. And the buck spooks and takes off, and I let fly, and my arrow goes into this big high arch and hits the top of that cathedral because I aimed higher as he moved and deflected. And as I looked over my shoulder, just as I shot, he's getting up trying to draw and shoot. Well, I got mad. I said, let's go find your deer before I have to kill you. So we go back over there, and I said, you go out this way about 100 yards, and I go over this way. And I said, try to smell him. I said, try to smell him. I said, you're going to smell him because he's gassy by now. He'll be passing gas, and we'll be able to smell his guts passing there. So I'm sniffing and smelling. All of a sudden, I could smell him. So I went straight to him. There he was, deader than hell. I looked over there, and I looked at him, and he had this sick look on his face, like frantic, like pathetic, like he wasn't going to find it. I said, I ought to let him suffer for a little while. Then I said, no, fuck it. I grabbed that buck, and I held his head up over the high coastal clump grass, and he goes, unbelievable, man, unbelievable. He came running to me, and he almost tripped. We had an arrow knocked in case it was still alive. He was going to get a shot off, and I said, watch that broadhead. And he threw the whole bow and broadhead and all, and just ran and grabbed the buck, you know. On cloud 9 then, but I was about ready to kill him when he blew my shot on that uni buck. Never saw that deer again. God, he was a shooter. He's in the 170s, you know. That deer had 10 big points with a good big old long 50. That 15 inches added to the score, you know, that puts him up there quick. That other one that we killed was 165. Perfect. Finished the bow kill for the first cop. Went after it, tracked it down, and shot it. And so one night at the shop, they're bragging about their big bucks, and Larry goes, shit. He said, one man killed all them deer. And he said, you're absolutely right, Larry. He's responsible for all of them, you know. And he said, well, he finished mine off. And the other cop said, well, he had to finish mine off, too.
What was the draw to bow hunting at that time? I know, why'd you guys start doing that?
Well, added measure of the trophy, plus be more stealth. We didn't know what kind of heat we were going to be faced with. And that second cop was so scared to go. In order to go, he said, I'll go under one condition, bows only. He didn't want to pop a shot in there. He's scared to pop a shot. He said, I'll go, but I'll go quiet. I don't want to take a chance on popping a shot. But the first cop, he took a gun, killed 4 more with the gun.
Were there any solo trips you did with just a bow?
No, I never took just a bow. I didn't play. I wasn't going to come back telling about a 240-inch double drop deer with shit flying in every direction, getting away. That wasn't me. I wasn't going to come out a loser.
You weren't in there for your health?
I didn't go out there to see the big one get away. Here's the way I looked at it. George Parr was the Duke of Duval County. He killed more big deer out of a helicopter than any man's ever shot, ever going to shoot. 200-inch deer, he shot 200-something of them.
Out of a helicopter?
Yeah, 223 fully automatic. He was the county commissioner in Duval County there at Freer. Okay. Celso Abundez, the Mexican hand there, the #1 flesher in that taxidermy in Kingsville, he said, George Parr is the only man that ever came in this shop and didn't say, I saw a big one and he got away. He said, he came in, he said, I saw 5 or I saw 10. But he said, and here's their heads. He never let one get away. Every time he saw a big one, he killed it.
Yeah. So You talk about all these people having buck fever. You couldn't have been stone cold on every trip you went on, right?
I've had buck fever.
What's one of the worst? Have you told that story yet?
I think on other podcasts,
Yeah.
but I buck fevered one time. I buck fevered with, 4 big deer coming in on me in the same spot. I blew the biggest opportunity I've ever had. Blew it. But the pressure, the heat was part of it. And, man, I don't even want to tell that story. It makes me look so bad. But, I blew it on the biggest opportunity I ever had. But there were a lot of factors playing in. I'd been up all night with no sleep the night before. I'd stayed up all day with no nap waiting on this 30-inch buck out in this clearing. And there were 3 more big ones down on the other end and 500 yards away. And my plan was to go out there halfway between them, shoot the 30-inch spread, and whichever one of the other 3 there together, I was going to kill it next. Well, I got tired of waiting, restless, popped my horns, big 12.160-something, high 160s, run right up to me, stretched his eyes and turned, run 30 yards out, stopped. I just took aim on the back of his neck. So I got to shoot him, then I'm going to run out there and kill the wide one. My plan changed, fell apart, whatever you call it. Put the crosshairs around the back of his neck, started squeezing, and took my time too long because as I was squeezing off the shot, he turned his head, and I just blew the whole left earbud off, hanging by a string, and he run off. And I got mad. The shot was loud, and I cringed, and I just locked up. I didn't even get up and rechamber a shell to go out there and get after the other buck. Or I did rechamber a shell, put the safety back on. The wide one comes in next. He comes running right in on me, stops, looks right at me. I squeeze, nothing happens. Do it again, goes past a little more brush, stops. I bleeded him, he stopped. I squeezed again, nothing happened. I'm going, let your safety back on. So then I got my shit together and put my safety off, and he moved behind some heavy brush. I shot, and he ran forward 20 yards. He fell down on his knees, and he was just heaving and gagging and choking, and I thought I had him. Well, a Jeep cranks 1,500 yards max, maybe 1,200 yards from me, starts wide open right at me.
Listening for you.
Through the brush, hauling ass at me. Them other 3 bucks spooked right in on top of me next. First, the Blackhorn 150 class just danced right on through, stopped, looked at me, and went right on through. Mule deer-looking buck that had forks, and he had a pair of black velvet skin-covered handlebars. Excuse me, I was choking a little there. And the next one was the typical Boone Crockett. To this day, he's 190-something. He might even went over 200. He wasn't what you'd call overly big looking. It was a compact looking 19-inch buck, but web beams, flat, but wide, 6.5-inch circumferences on the 3rd and 4th easy. And every point on him was straight in line, and they were all that far apart. I never dreamed of seeing a buck like that. He had more than all your fingers sticking up on both sides, perfectly even. It's a solid 190-something typical deer. The eye guards were 10 inches and went to the top of the rack.
That had to be over 2.
But he was a straight-looking rack. The tines didn't curve inward for extra measurement, but he was just square as he could be. But the beams turned and rocking chaired all the way up to the top of the longest points. Everything on him was long, fully mature, 7.5-year-old deer probably. I couldn't shoot him. I started to kill him. I mean, the Jeep pulls right up to the launch. You've heard me tell it before, but when they cut the motor, I could hear that fan blade turning right outside the mount, went 30 feet from me. Now, I was backed up in this cat claw for a minute and just tried to hold there and put on some camo gloves. I was picking through my fingers like that, and my spirit said, shoot that deer. I was looking at him from 30 yards from behind. I blanked on the truck, the Jeep being outside the mount and the men in it, and I went, shoot that deer. And I'm talking to myself. My spirit was saying, shoot him. I took 2 steps to a live oak, put a gun on it for a rest, started squeezing on the back of his neck. And when that trigger moved, I caught myself. I'd have been caught right then, that day, right there, had I shot that deer. They'd have came running in on me and had me. That was in 82, December of 82. Day 1 of an 11-day hunt. I went back through there 11 days later on that last day, and I looked hard for bones, any sign of that 30-inch buck. I was going to try to recover the skull. No sign of him, not a bone. Couldn't find no bones at all.
You were hunting legitimately a 30-inch wide buck.
That deer was, if he wasn't 30 inside, he was 31. His spread was wider than his whole body was long, laying there looking up at me broadside.
Looks like something you'd see in a Bass Pro Shop.
I had him at 300 yards, and then I had him at 20. So if I don't know what he looked like at 20, what do you think
that deer scored?
That's what I'm talking about. He was a book deer. I think he was in the book. The typical was in the book. The mule deer looking one with the black handlebar throw tines, he was book score, but that penalty, the forks and the throw times were going to kick him out. The Blackhorn 150 was nothing. But that typical 12 I rattled up to start the blowjob, you can call it. I'm blowing it on the whole damn deal. That deer could have been 169. He was very high 160s. You know, he had black horns and everything was straight on him, but he was just beautiful, perfect 12-point rack. I shouldn't have hit the horns. If I hadn't hit the horns and rattled him up, I would have killed the 30-inch buck and I would have shot one of the other ones out of the pile. Probably the typical, because it would have stood out then. The typical's color was so white it looked like the dead grass. All day long I would look at him too, and I said, I can't tell much about that deer. I could see them beams went way up, but I couldn't see the points. Because probably they were a solid wall, and the grass was between me and them, and behind it, there was no way to distinguish what the rack had all day. I did not know that. If I'd have known that deer was in the 190s typical, I'd have went straight to him right then and shot him, cut his head off, bring him and ran. That's how big he was. I would have blown off the 30-inch spread for that deer.
God.
So you think there was multiple booners in that one group?
I think 3 had book frame potential easily. I was sick for days. But, 9 days into the hunt, I killed a 180 buck over there, and that livened things back up.
Did you see that in your time there, do you think most of the mature deer kind of hung out by themselves? Did you ever see any type of that? That
was the largest group I saw early rut. Late season hungry. I've seen between 50 and 60, maybe even as many as 70 bucks in one wide, body to body, all of them big, rack throughout the whole deal. Me and a guy named Ricky Ward's bricklayer. Last brick in the wall is the name of that story. We ran 500-600 yards to try to cut them off as they were leaving this clearing heading for the big brush. And as we got there, they were in the brush. There was still a line of them coming up from behind. And we got in there, and I saw this real wide black deer. He looked 30 inches. Oh, shoot him, Ricky, shoot him. He didn't see him. He was just above the cactus looking right at us, just his head. He'd have had to nose shoot him. I could have killed the deer. He didn't see him till he turned. And when he turned, he said, oh, catch him. And too late. It's gone. Couldn't get a shot. Well, those 50, 60 deer were already in the brush. It was over for them. A buck comes running up behind us, galloping in, tongue hanging out, going, licking both sides of its face. Weird, man. I'd never seen one do that before. Big eye guards, but one had a broke-off point or something on the rack that I didn't like. I didn't want him to shoot him. He stretched real close to us. His eyes stretched wide open. He took off and run on by us. I wouldn't let him kill it. Man, so many times, though, people I had with me cost me the deer, but I've blown it, too. I've let them get away. It happens. It's part of it.
That's just like you say, part of it. It's always the big one, though.
I understand.
It's always the big one.
But I would rather see a big one and see it get away than to never see a big deer in the wild. I've seen them. I mean, sometimes it makes you sick that they got away, but you go, I know they're there. I knew they were there. I know they're there now. And you go, Tom East knew those deer were there, too. And that's why he was so adamant about protecting them, because he'd seen them out of the helicopter. He knew exactly what he had. And when he heard a shot go off, he just assumed it was one of them giants, and it'd kill him.
Well, he was right a lot of the time, right?
Right. Some of the time he was right. I used to say when we rattled up the scarecrow, me and George, if a game warden was to see a film of that, he would start throwing up green. Because they don't normally, most game wardens don't get to hunt on that level either.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little envy there. It's like freaking outlaw poachers come along and they get to see that happen. They get to see one of those beautiful giants come running wide open right into them and shoot him, rattle him up. They don't see that. Some of them save their money, get to hunt and get an experience like that. But for the most part, they know we're the real hunters that got to see it all, and we did. I mean, we know that. There's been some game wardens quoted saying, you and Dennis and Charlie, y'all are the real hunters. George heard them say it.
Mm.
Yeah, they told George that. They said, yeah, y'all three are the real deer hunters in this state.
Do you guys think that you've seen some of the best whitetail hunting that's ever existed?
Yeah. I mean, I don't
You've
know
been on some of the best hunts that
Roy can
ever
tell you
been.
that.
There's no question about it.
It'll never be that good again.
How many did you end up taking by yourself? I don't know if we. Hit
I mean, that take.
Mhm.
Did you, well, y'all saw the one in the bed. You showed them that one in the bedroom.
Well, he's killed 5 bucks with me,
5
and then on the 3 different hunts. I think one of the funniest stories Roy's ever told me about his hunting. Remember when you was back here in the pasture on that wellhead, and you had this buck in your scope. He was about 300 yards, and he was running down that valley, and he topped out on that hill over there, and you just 270 just dropped him. And the guy that walked up beside your window said, "What a fucking shot, man!" And Roy didn't even see that guy walk up to the truck.
But, you know, I remember this time, too, there's this coyote running. There's this coyote running across here, and he's running full speed and gets up to the top of the dam on the tank. Charlie knocks him down. About 200 yards. I ain't kidding
On
you.
full run?
Yeah.
It was running.
Jeez Louise. That's
I
awesome.
mean, that was the. I know we shot at a fallow. I shot at that fallow over here.
Yep.
3 or 4 times. Charlie says, "Give me the damn rifle." Bow, dropped him.
Well, he was shooting with a 270, and the the mount was loose. We found that out later.
Yeah,
Come loose on that old, was a Winchester 270 automatic, semi-automatic. Well, Darlene, his sister-in-law, had a 30-30 in the front. I just stepped out of the back of the truck. I said, "Hand me that 30-30, Darlene." She hands it to me, iron sight. He'd shot at it twice, standing with the spotlight on it, night hunting this white fella doe. And I said, "Keep the light on her, buddy." Oh, his brother Buddy's in the front driver's side, and he keeps the light on her. It's about 120 yards, and I just put that iron sight right on that white body. It was an easy shot. Pulled through the shoulder and shot, broke her neck. Rolled her. Yeah, I grew up shooting that 22 Marlin iron sight, so it felt right at home.
Yeah, you guys didn't ever suppress anything either. Like, was that not a big thing back in the... Suppressing wasn't where it is today, even close?
You know, I didn't even develop those downloads until after I had taken Roy. Yeah, I got them late in the game.
What's that?
Old Captain Easy out there at Alpine made me them reduced charges. You know, I had them 7mm shells with about 1/4 inch of powder in the bottom of them and 100 grain hollow point, and I'd drill them out and put putty in the tip.
I never shot one.
Yep. But, you know, up close, put it right in their Adam's apple and drop them kicking.
You guys didn't ever try any of the homemade, the tennis balls, shooting through tennis balls? No need? You're just it's such a big landscape, it's not even needed?
I wasn't going to screw around with something that didn't matter.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when that second cop was going with me. First cop went over there, "Let me see your gear. See what you're taking." Chunk that, chunk that, chunk that. You know, he just culled about 3/4 of what he was going to take and weigh himself down with. We had a standing rule. An ounce at the fence is a pound in the ranch. So you cut your weight all you could. Because, you know, after a long hunt, you're carrying all that weight around. You know,
Or an ounce at the fence going in,
that's what
and 10 pounds at the fence coming out.
That's right. Because, you know, your pack gets lighter for a while, and then you put all them sheds and extra capes and horns in there and stuff. Next thing you know, it weighs more leaving than it did going in.
Are there any...
I mean, just like all those sheds. See all those sheds?
Yeah.
I picked those up in the Kennedy. Well, we did.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them over there come out of the Kennedy.
Is there any deadheads you guys ever found?
That pair of locks in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Yep. I found another set bigger than them. Left them.
What's the biggest set you found?
I think one of them bucks was a 160-inch buck in that pair of locks, 12-point. And then it had a big 9 hung up in it. It was a bigger buck. He had more mass and length than points, but, you know, they'd a hole in my leg, he'd a hole in my pants, and he'd a hole in my knee, you know. Had it on my sling, on my gun sling. I hung him on that. It was just raking my leg. Finally cut through my pants and cut me all up. And I said, "Screw these damn shit, you know, deadheads." I chunked them. If I could have pried them apart, I think I'd have took the 9-point and threw the 12-point down and scared it. He was a better buck.
You were telling us a story earlier on the dock about you nearly freezing to death and covering up with that thatch. Can you tell that one again?
That old coastal clump grass.
Yeah.
Well, I shot a deer that I now named Little John because it's real massive and all. I was filming. I've got video footage of this. I got this VHS camera and I'm filming this little, I think he's an 8-point, but a very tiny 8-point, and he's bobbing his head like this, and I'm following him with the camera, point blank, laughing. I snicker. You can hear my breath out of my nose snicker. And then next thing you know, I dropped the camera. I heard, I looked up, 2 bucks back to back, just one right on the other one's ass. Big 8-point, 160-something 8-point, big, heavy weight and all. Right on Little John's butt. Run Little John right to me, and he just turned and flared and went across this one hole, and I had just enough time to get the gun up and shoot him. Broke his back and dropped him. The 8 had turned around and went the other way, and I couldn't get a lane on him. So I took what I could, second prize. Not as good as first, but that 8-point was so big, I stayed there. I meandered around, couldn't find him. I thought I would see him again, rattle him, just walk up on him, jump him, shoot him. I tried for him, and it dropped off real cold that night. They said on the headset later that morning it was 24 degrees that night, but it was a moist, cold night. I had stayed away from my backpack about 2.5 to 3 miles, and I decided no sleeping bag, I'll be all right. It's light and cool tonight. It's not going to freeze real hard, but it did. And I mean, up around midnight, I started getting hypothermia, and I was just shivering, and my teeth were chattering, my knees were shaking and rattling, and I said, I got to get up and do something. I jogged in place, and then I said, cut a bunch of this grass, make me a homemade sleeping bag out of it. So I pulled up my buck knife, opened it up, and it had a good edge to start with, but I turned it into a butter knife by the time I got through cutting that grass. I mean, all night long, I would have to get up again every about an hour, a little bit less maybe. Many different times I got up and I cut about a 30-foot circle of that darn coastal clump grass off at the ground. I mean, the whole time I would be cutting it saying, we love thatch, we love thatch. And I made me this little thatch mummy sleeping bag, and I'd slide back down in it and pull that stuff back up over it, and I'd go to sleep in a dead rest for just a short period of time, just wake up shivering and chattering and hypothermiating again. I don't know how many times I did that. Finally, it's cracking light and it's colder than it's been all night, and I said, I've got to get up and get moving. I mean, that jogging in place was only making me sweaty and then get colder. So I left and I looked back. It looked like a bush hog mowed a 30-foot circle to the ground, you know. And like I say, my edge was gone on my knife. I mean, I couldn't hardly even muscle to make it cut grass by the end of it. I got back to my pack now and I said, screw it, I'm just going to rest here a little while, man. Get warmed up good and eat good and lay up. Yeah, I didn't ever see that 8-point again that summer. You know, I mean, that winter, that buck I jumped him one time the next year in that high rolling shrub oak. That's where he had gone to. He bedded in the middle of that. I jumped him the next year out of it. Just saw him high leap, gone, big, huge 8. Looked like this from the front. Pyramid. Big old pyramid looking rack. That's why he was whipping the shit out of Little John. See, they got hot and they came in. He was just gouging him in the ass right to me.
Is there any other bucks that you had year-to-year history with?
I've got him on film. There was a buck, and I killed him the 3rd year, but I just told about taking Big L on this hunt on another podcast. And the cops had seen this film footage from the 16-day hunt. And they were saying he's 26, 27 inch spread. I said, no, he's 25. Just like I've said before, everybody thinks they're bigger than I do by 2 inches. I've got the film. I'll show you. He's on my Instagram deal. But I passed him. I passed him the morning I killed that Little John. Saw the big 8. You know, a couple of rattles before. And so they said, you should have killed that deer. He's 26, 27 inch spread. No. The next year I was figuring to kill him. But I had Big L with me, and I said, I'm going to let you shoot that deer. He wasn't heavy. He was just wide and spindly, and, you know, he scored 160 the first year. He scored 170 the next. He was downhill the 3rd year when I killed him. But Larry spoke. I told him we set up on this clearing I'd been seeing him near, and I said, he comes at you, shoot, don't speak. Don't you start talking. We were 200 yards, and it was calm and quiet right at dark, and a doe comes out from under this overhanging limb, and that buck's right on her ass. Larry says, it's him. I turned around and ran back in. I just wanted to punch him. I said, Larry, I said, don't speak. He goes, oh no. I said, you should have been shooting instead of talking. He could have killed him. Well, the next year, I killed him the first night I was back there on the 27-day hunt, right at dark. He had a big herd of does with him, and he was running them and chasing them. And I said, that's him, that huge body. And I shot him. Didn't find him that night. It was so close to dark. Found him the next morning. Couch said eat him all inside out and turned his neck up over his head and everything. I've got pictures of him. He'd been downhill on the points, real skinny, drought and age both. He shrank down under 160 that third year. But he got to taste my 708. 3 years running after that same buck, sort of.
Well, you didn't save the rack?
I gave it to Enrique in Mexico City.
Oh.
Yeah, he in the shed. I had found one shed of that deer, and I've got a picture of it from that better year. And I gave that to Enrique. Matter of fact, I had 2 sheds, and I think they were a year apart, but I put them on a pedicle on a skull, and I gave both the kill and the sheds of it. You know, down there in Mexico City, those taxidermists down there don't see big whitetails. They're so deep in the interior, they don't even get to mount much of the big trophies from the Mexican border. That's where your big whitetails are, is on the Mexican border, right up on the Rio Grande. But I gave both those sets of horns to Enrique. He was my buddy down there, another taxidermist. Roy came down, and we were going through a tunnel in a mountain, hauling ass in this Volkswagen, and Roy goes, let's don't die. And he goes, oh, well, if we go out together. And he just punched it. You remember that? Enrique was crazy.
Is there anything that you remember for their mass, that just baseball bat type of horns, like otherworldly mass? Any bucks that you can remember?
I think the biggest basis I saw was when I got caught on an 8-point. Hit bear camp basis. He was plain straight 8. An old downhill deer. Clearly bear, 8-inch girths on the basis. Just plug basis, and then he just dwindled. That's the biggest basis I think I saw. There's $5 when I was trying to get to the big one and shoot it. And here come the truck down the beach. Here come the plane. But I wouldn't have shot him, even with them big bases. Somewhere else, all by himself. I wouldn't have shot him. He didn't have enough upstairs. But those bases would have made a great skull bleacher plaque mount.
Yeah.
Knobby, no texture all over them.
Mass is not something that tricks your trigger. Is it?
It is, but it's got to carry.
Got to have it all.
After shooting Big John, and when you meet Big John, you will see what I mean. And once you've killed John, you get picky.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
You might have already covered this, but if you got another story, that's all the better. It might spark another memory. But Roy, we'll start with you. What we like to do, kind of towards the end of the podcast, is we like to ask our guests what's that one moment, whether that be a shot opportunity or just a blown encounter, that still haunts you to this day, where you almost sealed the deal but didn't quite get it done. What's your close but no cigar? And it can be about any species. I know you have a variety up here.
I know.
It doesn't have to be whitetail.
This has always upset me. And every time I think about it, but I was over there in the back pasture here, and I come up, and I think I've told you that story. I come up on this damn coyote. I mean, there he is right there. He's not any further from here to the fence. I'm like, I got my rifle, pointed right at him, and missed him. That close. And I'm like, whatever happened to that deal?
How you miss a cow at 20 yards?
That was one of the times that I've been the most disappointing.
Yeah. Shoot them suckers when you can. God.
I've had quite a few of those misses at 20 yards. I've done that
Just
before.
Go buying yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
But I can remember shooting one and was in Catula at my buddy's ranch.
Ernie's.
And I see this coyote over here. I'll bet you that thing's like 125 yards, say. And I see him running. Okay, I'll catch him in this opening over here. Like that deer I was telling you about. Mm-hmm. And it got that opening, pow! I dropped him and it run in the other brush, but that was one of my best shots.
That's a pretty good poke. 125 yards on a coyote.
Yeah.
That's.
They're not very big.
Yeah, it was that far. Whenever Charlie hit that one on the dam, it was that far or further.
Yeah, my best coyote shot was up in the Panhandle. Ben Curtis up there got me on this mule deer place. And I was away from him, and I was walking this road, and this mangy coyote ran out in front of me. And he loaned me a 7 mag of his to shoot up there. And I shot that coyote, just trying to put him out of his misery. He was so homely looking. He looked like a Mexican hairless chihuahua. He didn't have any hair on him. He was so mangy. And he shit 20-yard stream of shit when I shot him. I literally blew, you've heard that term, I blew the shit out of him with that 7 mag. I mean, that concussion in his rib cage just shot shit 20 yards out behind him.
Talk about good crappie bait, right?
I laughed until I saw Ben, and I said, "You got to come see this." I wouldn't touch him. I didn't want to touch that nasty bastard, But I said, "Come see what happened when I shot him." And I said, "Look," and he goes, "Oh, I smell it already." And I said, "But look how far it squirted out of his ass when I shot him." Oh, that was the funniest one. I'll never forget shooting that coyote.
Well, what about for you? I mean, again, it can be any species. What's your close but no cigar?
Man, I miss some antelope that I'm sick about to this day. When I was 19, I wasn't, what I am now in shooting and all ever was. But I let 3 really big monster antelope get away from me on legal New Mexico hunts when I was 19. I wasn't used to shooting and allowing for the wind. I wasn't used to shooting 350-yard shots allowing for the drop. But I turned around and went up there a couple years later and made a 481 jogging steps shot, which was clearly a 600-yard shot on an antelope. First shot off railroad tracks after a stop. Threw him a big curveball. I held 2 antelope body lengths over to the right for wind off his butt. He's facing at a quarter angle away from me. Held about 2 body heights over his back for a drop. Threw him a curveball in there, this wicked slashing, drop fading curveball, and strike 3. It caught the hair of the hip area, cut 22 inches of hair and went in right behind the shoulder. I used to have the whole hide tanned, and you could see where that hair burned all the way till it went in behind the shoulder. Had his head down feeding, and it come out under this right ear butt. 120 grain bullet, 25-06. When I got to him, I was counting off the last 8 or 9 steps. And they joined me with 2 trucks watching from the hilltop. They had been on him with binoculars. One was on me, one was on the antelope. And he goes, "He shot." And then he saw the recoil. And then he heard. He said he missed him. He goes, "Connection." But went straight down. When they drove up, I counted off them last 8 or 9 yard steps, jogging, walking, long steps. They all 3 got out of 2 trucks, and they started on their knees. One I can, but what a fucking shot. They couldn't believe I hit him.
Oh, that is
wild. That was redemption, It reminded me of a line drive home run I saw Pete and Cavilla hit over the center field wall. It never got over 15 feet off the ground. He hit one out so quick, if you blinked, you missed it, man. It was a wicked, slashing, fading, hooking, home run.
Stinger.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. A lead pipe.
Well, awesome. This was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for doing this.
Yeah, I'm glad my buddy Roy got to come on here and participate and tell some of his favorite stories. We had
this has been enjoyable.
Oh, well, you get to kick
I
back.
always look at my book, man.
Mm-hmm.
Now, well, you can tell how many times I've opened the damn thing. I'm going to have to get me a new book one of these days.
Need a new cover.
Yeah.
Get you a good vinyl cover on it. Got a lot of memories there.
Yeah, it is.
So like I said, we faced the marathon element by the time we'd get out on them hunts, especially those 2 that were 2 week long. But when you leave that ranch, you forget all the pain, all the miles, all the brush and the cactus and the thorns poking you and scraping you and cutting you and all the different times you felt fatigued and didn't think you could go any further. That all stays in the ranch. Once you get on pavement and start rolling, all you can think about is those trophies you got to mount. And from then on, you never remember the pain, what you
And
had
I
to
mean, you
endure.
feel refreshed. I mean,
Reset.
just rejuvenated.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
You
good
know.
exercise.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, you come out there in good health from a 2-week trip.
That's
I
a
can
heck of a
guarantee it.
cleanse.
Blow the fat out of all your arteries on your heart wall.
There you go.
Well,
Well, where can people get the book that have enjoyed these stories, want to see more of it?
Yeah, my website's www.princeofpoachers.com, and I'm on Instagram, Charles Beaty 330. You can find me on Facebook with the Prince of Poachers page, and yeah, anybody that doesn't have the book yet is just missing out on the party, because everybody that's got it loves it and can't wait for part 2. They're screaming for it.
you hit 10K on Instagram too, didn't you?
Yeah, I've hit 10,000. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, you will be looking out for part 2 in the summer, sometime in the summer?
Yeah, I'm gonna have it out this year. It's gonna happen.
All right. Well, cool. Ooh. Oh, there went your minnow.
Little scrapper. Yeah, I'm gonna try to use all these dead minnows I can again, because fucking start coming here and got half our minnow. Yep. Oh, had him and lost him. Had him and lost him.
Don't worry, I'll get in there for you.
We may do better out here than we did inside the hole. Usually it's the other way around. At night I like to come out here under all the lights and just hammer. Yep. There he is.
There you go.
Taking me under.
That might be a sand bass or catfish.
Ooh, a big crappie.
Is it crappie?
Sand bass.
I was like, that's a big crappie.
Bigger than one I caught.
Yeah, that's a keeper city. See, my son, when he comes, he gets out here on this front, lights all bright at night, and throws lures and just hammers. He fills the ice chest full of sand bass throwing
Really?
lures at night. He loves that. He
Sand
likes
bass
that-
remind me of trout. Just
He
how
likes that
how they
chunking and
fight.
winding and direct attack.
There's not a fight like a sand bass per pound.
Yeah, you catch a 3.5 pounder, you got a fight on your hands. And I think my dogs knew when I left today that I wasn't coming home till after dark. And maybe not till tomorrow. We ain't gonna have Roy forever. It was now or never. He's 80 years old, his memory's flipping, and I thought, what a great honor of him, let his place be shown off. That mean a lot to him. Then, he'll know he left that behind. He left his mark. I mean, it's not like he's got a part. Oh, you got another hit there.
I'm about to come over there by you.
It's not like he's got a part 2. That's the longer I've strung them along, the better to think the book's going to be. But it is. It's not going to lackluster when it's out. They'll say, you got to be shitting me. I thought he'd outdone everything already. What he's done in this second part, it's just going to blow their mind how much of it and how much more. And the stories are endless variety. I mean, the stories just, every one of them are individual. There's no two alike.
Yeah.
I mean, you think, well, you beat the horn, you see a buck come running up. There's always an extenuating circumstance to the story. I'm going to tell y'all one thing that's come to my mind. It's revelation, I call it. I figured out who that was in that truck at the buffalo pen on that park deer. That was the owner's son from the 200 acres next door. And here's what where the story gets real deep. A buddy of mine knew them, and he had been hearing about those deer from his dad being best friends with the owner. And, Willie had told him that this Lynn guy that owned that 200 acres was going to let them kill it because his son had found them locked up at night. That may be where... Yeah,
Keeper?
No, shit, no. That's good bait. But his son had found those 2 double drop bucks locked up at night and let them go. He undid them and let them go. Well, Doyle didn't believe that story even when Willie told it to him, his own dad. But then he got to saying, Lynn said we could come over there, but it's in the city limits, so it's not where you can shoot a rifle. Can we get a bow, a crossbow, and hunt it like a bow hunt? And they were talking to him about that. And while they were talking to him about that, I said, all right, if y'all are going to get to hunt there, I'm going to stop looking for that deer. I broke from it for about 6 to 7 weeks. That's what cost me not killing him. I would have killed him during that time, but I backed off. I said, I'm going to back off and let y'all hunt him. and kill him. I want to see y'all get it. And so what happens is they got the word that the son had decided he wanted to shoot the buck. And he told him, Dad, don't let them hunt it. I'm going to kill the deer. I've decided I want to kill him. So the son starts hunting him. So then when Doyle told him, he goes, that boy wants to kill it now. He said, go shoot that deer, Charlie. I said, all right. He said, go kill that buck. So that's when I went back and ended up shooting that one up there in the lake house, you know, trying to find the big one, and had the counters with him, jumped him with the doe, and they squirted out and this way, that way behind the shadows, and I couldn't get a shot. And then never got a shot again, but then the rumor started getting out that the game wardens knew I was hunting that deer. And so they started, there's a keeper. They started watching it, and I quit and went to South Texas. See, there's more to that story. I call that the year of the double Mickey and the double drop bucks. I switched December 24th, took my boss, that old hot-headed prick there at Fort Worth. I took him to the Kennedy, and he shot 4 bucks, 171, a 169, and a buck with a double rack on one side. Same identical shape in, you know, spitting image, double rack on one side. Beautiful deer, not big, but yeah, you got something going on there. Now you're hung up. But then he killed a buck we called a bonus buck. He had no eye guards, but he was 22 inches and had forks on both back tines. Neat looking buck. The absence of no eye guards made him look even wider when he shot him. Yeah. But I said, all right, that's it. You don't need to kill that deer. Well, then he kills the 169 at dark the last evening. And I was all for him shooting that deer because it was good. But then I saw another buck better. And I said, you or me one needs to go shoot that buck. And he goes, nope, not after I just fired that shot. And I said, you're right, but that's a hell of a deer, Steve. We need one of us needs to go kill that deer. He was with 3 other bucks running off. And he goes, nope, we're not popping another shot. This was my hunt, and I don't want you to fire another shot and get us caught. And I said, you're right. You're right, but I said, that's one of the best ones I've let run off. He was a good deer. He had a lot of points. We could see a lot of forks and handlebars, trash on him.
What was the biggest set of eye guards you ever seen down there?
Well, I've seen them long. Dennis Music killed one with 12-inch eye guards on both sides. It's at Milton's mansion, too. But she won't ever give that one back to me. I don't want it. I didn't kill it. But I've seen bucks come out of the Kennedy that old Calvin Brown shot that had 12-inch double eye guards, both sides.
God.
Thing about the Kennedy was you never knew what you were going to see. You could dream up something that you've never seen, and then you'd end up seeing that in the Kennedy. They could have some weird-looking racks. Problem was, when you saw them neat freaks, they were usually too young to want to kill them. You'd say, no, I'm going to let that deer live. I want him to see bigger, better years. Maybe kill him later.
Did you ever like share information with any of the other poachers?
Me and George.
Just you and George?
Yeah, me and George and Dennis. We'd say, all right, well, if you're going in that area, be looking for such and such looking buck.
Really?
You know, yeah. We had our circle.
Yeah.
George's friend, Jimmy Zumwalt, shot a white buck in there, 4.5-year-old. Hibbler offered him $2,000 for
albino?
it. Yeah, pure white. And Dick Idle had been there hunting legal first year or two. The Kennedy was opened, 84, 85. And I told them, I said, I bet that's that buck Dick Idle filmed. Because he filmed him young, 3.5. Within a year or two, Jimmy Zumwalt had killed that deer. And I swore, I said, that's probably the same buck, because the same area.
Really?
They were hunting that same area that Idle had photographed, that filmed it. He got a video of it. Idle had a tape out about that hunt. He said the Kennedy Ranch is the land of the most 135 and 140 class bucks anywhere. And I said, well, he did not do his math very well, because it is the land of the most 135 to 145 bucks of anywhere. But I said, it is also the land of the most 165 to 175 inch deer.
Has them all.
I said, Dick, you didn't do your math right.
Is Dick from Texas?
Up north. He's a Yankee. But you know what? He had a career down there, outlaw hunting. Nobody knew about it, but Joe Hibbler told me. He goes, Dick Idle was hunting the Red Nunley where you saw your big one get away. He was going in there. I mean, then he decided he wanted to pursue the limelight, and he knew he had to clean up his act and go legal beagle or he would be ruined. Mm-hmm. But Hibbler told me, and he knew, you know, that Dick Idle got his start down there outlawing too. You know, when it was a $200 fine if you got caught.
Yeah. You kind of hear a lot of those like rumor mills getting spread about like all those old time people, you know, and it seems like they kind of all have the same story, you know.
Yep.
Stuff's a little bit shady, and then, you know.
Well, it's one direction or the other. Either they go legal, or in law enforcement even maybe, become a game warden. They had a charge when they were a teenager, then it straightened their thinking up, and they decided to be a game warden. Or a cop. Or then you've got a cop that's been straight-laced all his life, and Charlie Beaty comes along and corrupts the poor bastard. You just spent a lifetime looking and never killed a good one and said, I want to kill a good one, I'm going. You got a fish on right now, your line's way out. It was going at one angle, now it's straightening back up. I used to watch my line. You know what that's important with? The big ones. A big crappie will grab it and just start moving dead level away from you or to you or under the dock or whatever. That's when I know it's a big one. I'll stick him quick when he starts moving to one side or the other. Me and Pat have stood up here all night long just killing them, you know, one right after another.
Is Pat friends with Roy too?
Yeah, he's been up here once, but he's met him
Ooh,
on
that's a
other
good one.
occasions.
That was a good bite.
Oh, never mind.
Not a keeper, though.
The way you set that hook
That felt good.
had me thinking.
See, these damn herons are smart. They know fishermen leave buckets of bait.
That's crazy.
They'll come steal a whole bucket full of perch you're fixing to put on a trot line if you let them. They'll
Really?
eat every one of them. Oh, I missed that when he thumped the shit out of it. I'm not against catching another 9-pound flathead either. Some good eating there.
Man, I wish there was some public land in South Texas you could deer hunt.
Well, the islands.
Can you do it without drawing?
Let me tell you what I found out. A guy calls me. He said, I'm Ernie Butler. He said, I love your story. I got one just like it. I said, you need to write a book just like it. He goes, you know, I could. He said, at one time I was the most wanted outlaw down there. He had outlaw fishing going on, and he guided and took a lot of people from wounded warriors and stuff on fishing trips, and always kept redfish that were over the length limit, and, you know, filled ice chest full of massive kills of catches on fish. And when he take people, and he's got stories like me going down Padre Island and taking a motorcycle out of the back of his truck, driving it across the cut below the hole onto the Norris division of King Ranch and hunting off that motorcycle all over the Norris pasture. And he says he saw a buck one time that was easily 36 to 38 inch spread. A helicopter landed, and he goes, I think I recognize that helicopter. And he knew the guy that flew it and gauged the whales and did some work on the whales, and he motored right up to him, and he said, man, he said, you're hunting in the wrong spot. He goes, I just saw a fucking world record deer. Looked like he was 40 inches wide. He goes, I've seen that deer many times. I'm always looking for him again, but I never can get in range. He runs from me. If he would have gotten off that motorcycle, see, he could have probably killed that deer. But he was trying to chase him down and then jump off and take a shot, but he couldn't even get close. That buck was running like hell from that motorcycle. Well, he told me several other stories of the game wardens trying to bust him and even filing on him once, and he beat him in court. He has a marvelous story, and he's got the same storytelling ability that I do. I was glued listening to his stories. Only person I've ever heard tell a hunt story that captivated me. And I said, well, let me just tell you what your name of your book should be. I said, The Butler Did It Too. I said, dude, if you'll write your... He's 72 years old. Well, Pat just couldn't leave it alone. I told Pat about it, and he goes, I got to go meet that guy. Can you mind if I talk to him and all? And I said, no problem, Pat. Well, since then, Pat's found out their dads knew each other. These other men in Corpus knew each other that knew Pat's dad, and all these connections, and they arranged a visit. He went over and saw Bernie. He's made lures of all different styles, saltwater fishing lures and all too. He's got a little shop for that. There you go, another minnow. That's almost a shad, it's so little. But Pat really got a kick out of meeting that guy and stuff, but he told me, he goes, he'll never write a book. And I said, why not? And he goes, he's too set in his ways. He gets up early every morning, goes, does things with his kids and likes to help them, and he's old now and doesn't care, you know, about working on anything like that. And I said, all he's got to do is tell somebody like you, give you permission to write it for him. I mean, those stories he told me 3 or 4 stories in a row there on the phone one day, and every one of them were solid gold. And I thought, he's got a pile more. He just can't, can't sit here and listen to him all day. But he could write a good book. I mean, I think that name, The Butler Did It Too, would be just a hilarious title. Like, they're going to say, the cops did it too when they hear my story on the 2 cops, but then they hear something like him, that age-old, the butler did it, Yeah. Who killed the cook? The butler did it. There's about that many more minnows in the live well, but I screwed off a half a pound of minnows letting that damn herring whip up there while we were upstairs and clean the bucket. I mean, got every one of them. I thought, well, I hope they put them in the live well before they came up. And I looked in the live well and I go, nope, that gun crane herring must have got them.
Oh, come on. That was a good hike, too.
I'm going to walk around this back side and see what I can find.
Got a good one?
God dang it, I bumped my head.
Yeah, we found all the...
Charlie, are you throwing all the small ones over here?
What's that?
You pushing all the little ones over here?
Are y'all catching a bunch of them little ones? They're you know what's sad about that? They're famous for biting after the big fish have moved to the bank. So we're right on that transition line. So, the bank, first sunny day, next 2 or 3 days, that's where to be, the bank. Well, that's usually when you start catching all them little ones after the big ones have left the area, because a big crappie will feed on its own. They'll eat those little ones you caught a while ago.
Yeah.
They will. They'll hit them like a shad.
I love when you feel like a big thump and you hit it and it hits back and it's a crappie. It looks like a football. I love catching those footballs.
Yeah, when you stick them but don't move them.
Yeah.
Have you ever did any bow fishing?
I've got a friend that's gone crazy over that. I've done it, but you know what I did one time? This is coming in part 2. I'm going to tell it. I got so bored not getting the outlaw hunt. I was at the shop, and I wanted to take my son, my little 1.5, 2-year-old boy, to catch some fish. So we went to a little muddy tank, and we caught these pollywogs. The first trip, we caught 13 of them. And we got back to the shop, and Rebecca was supposed to take him on over to a birthday party for his older brother, his half-brother. So she showed up and took him, and I was supposed to go show up later. So me and Frank and Frank Robbins and Steve Moss had worked for me. Yeah, not a good sign. And so I said, I've always heard that term, more fun than shooting fish in a barrel. I said, let's try it out. And I had a blow dart gun up there at the shop. So we started blow darting them pollywogs doing mud cat, Seemed like
that's a good one.
Oh, good one, good one. Not really good, but anyway. Caught 33 of them, and I said, all right, that's enough. So this,
Talking about those little mud cats?
yeah. So this time, I was under a suspension. I got caught with a phony license plate sticker that I painted on myself, and I got put in jail and had to bond out. And so I'm under a suspension. In other words, I decided I better not drive until, I get this cleared up, because that's really bad. Driving while suspended is a real severe charge, So Rebecca said, all right, I'll drive you to and from the shop for a while. So she drops me off over there, and Frank and Steve Moss, we took one of them's car and went to that same pond and caught 33 of them. We came back, and bow fishing can be addictive, because my buddy Bennett Crow, he got hooked on the gator guards, and he'd bow shoot them at night, and they'd come out of the water growling like hell when he was trying to pull them in on the rope. Man, he got hooked. He said, I'm never going to hunt deer again with a gun or bow, either one. I'm hooked on bow fishing.
Yeah.
We just threw anchor on it.
That'd be the way to do it. Set up on a little flat bottom and have those big old spotlights and stuff.
He came up here one time, and we sat in a deer stand. Then after dark, we went over to Wise County Park and put his flat bottom in and went up Steel Creek. And we didn't see many fish that night. It was cold. And he said, well, if it was warmer, we would fill the boat. And I said, yeah, probably so. We should have known better than to come out while it's cold at night. And, he was telling me how much fun he was having doing it and all. He said, I'm telling you, I don't think I'll ever shoot another deer. I'm hooked on this bow fishing.
It's fun. It's not that fun. It's not deer fun.
Well, you can mount a fish on the wall, and it just don't do it what a buck will do. A buck head on the wall, big buck, will trump that every time on the wall.
You invited on any hunting trips since you started selling your book?
A bunch, and some fall right through. They just talk's cheap, but then others want me to come, and I go, look, I can't do it this year. I've got to get part 2 out. I can't go off gallivanting and playing. I don't know why I even bought a license except for fishing. I got a combo license, didn't even go hunting this year. If I'd have got a solid offer and you bring your son too, and I would have took Nathan and maybe my nephew from San Antonio, but by myself, I don't care a thing about it till I get part 2 out, and then I can hammer. All right, boys, here comes the fish.
Ooh, well, damn, he had a lot of bend for a little.
He was just going in circles with it. I used to get checked by this female game warden here all the time. And she would wait till right at dusk when I was killing the 3-pounders. And then she would motor up and back up and rev her engine and just run the fish out of here. And I said, Penny, I don't appreciate you coming. You could have come all day long. You could have come after dark and measured every fish in the ice chest. But I said, you pull up over here when they're biting again, I'm going to be mad. She knew what she was doing. She was just disturbing the hole. I gave her a free copy of the book, and I signed it like this. I said, now, Penny, I said, you know that you want to put an outlaw like me on your stringer just as bad as I want to put a game warden like you on mine. I said, you owe me a dance for the copy of the book. I'm going back in there. I missed a good bite. I missed a darn good bite right here. Foxing. I don't know how many big crappie I've caught right off this corner. Yeah, when we made the connection about him being the man on Susan Street there when I was 13, he was running me off them quail, that was hilarious because we didn't realize it till we were on a hunt together. And he said, you went down there with your shotgun? I said, yeah. He goes, I'm the guy that was running y'all off that covey of quail in my backyard. When he got those 3 out of hock for me, you know, the Rhinus buck and that nightmare, or the homemade reloads and the 12.180, he got those out of hock for me for $1,400. Then he paid me to mount them. And he said, if you ever want the Rhinus buck back, then just give me $400 for the $1,400 out of the $1,400 that he did. And he said, you can have them all back when I die or something. But, you know, he was just saying, if you want the Rhinus buck back, pay me back for mounting it and you can have it. I told him, I said, that one is just absolutely off the charts for not being for sale if I ever wanted it. My brother was with me when I shot it. He buck fevered like that. That's the only thing I've got left of Rhinus now is the memories and then that buck to ice the cake. I don't believe they're not biting in this hole. I hadn't told y'all another one that I think would go big. It's certainly going to be in part 2. Is when I started hunting legal at Hartzell's Ranch Guiding. I had a water skiing accident up here. July the 4th weekend, I went with Jill and her girlfriends. They loaded me in the boat. Before that, they'd always say, oh, you're too old to go with us, Charlie. And I said, just take me out, get me out on the lake. And I hadn't been out on the lake in a while. So they take me, and then the knee board a couple of them, and I said, let me try that knee board, and I've never done it. So I got on this knee board, and I'm running 28 mile an hour. And man, I thought I'd get a little fancy, and so I cut back across, you know, really building up speed and picking up pace, and ran right into this wave. And the board went out from under me, dug into the wave, and went down. Well, I knew I was going to bite it, so I just let go of the rope handle and dove in. When I did, I ran my left arm in the triangle at the end of the rope all the way to my shoulder. And then bang, the fucking boat jerked that triangle off my arm. Blew every vein in my left arm out from the shoulder down. My whole arm was a blood clot. They took me to the emergency room. And I think she was right, I'm too old to run with it. So for months, that blood clot, I'm at the Hartzell Ranch building a deer stand in a tree, and I pushed a blood clot out of that wound that was still not healed on my bicep, and it got in my bloodstream, and all of a sudden my heart went just running wide open. I got faint and dizzy and climbed down out of the tree and laid out flat on the ground, and there was 2 other men there with me, and they were talking to me, but the whole side of my head went numb and I couldn't talk. I got like a stroke sort of. And so I couldn't speak, and they were going, what can we do? You want us to take it to the hospital? And I'm just shaking my head, and they go, I thought I was going to die right there. I thought I had moved a blood clot to my heart, and it was over. And so, well, do you want some water? I nodded yes. So give me some water. I took a sip or 2 of water, and after about 10 minutes of my heart going brrr, wide open. I never knew it could do that. It went brrr, and came down to a low, regular heartbeat. And I felt sickish, but I began to feel better and better. Well, we got back to the cabin and told Tom what happened. And he goes, you think you need to go to the hospital and have them check you out? And I go, I don't know. I think if I just walk it off and circulate my blood, I might be better off. And so I took this cop there that I was guiding on a walk. We walked the whole little 1,300-acre side there and saw a big black buck. He spoke. I told him, don't speak when we step out. If he's there on the feeder, kill him, don't talk. He talked. That's him. Took off. Big old 36-inch long and 36-inch wide black buck. We've been trying to kill that thing 3 years, and Jackie Goldman run his mouth. I don't think he wanted to pay for it. I think he just wanted to see if it was as big as we kept saying. We called it the Phantom Black Buck. Well, I felt a lot better after walking a lot. I guess I walked 1.5 to 2 miles circling that property. So I had these little sinking spells driving down the road like it was going to happen again. And so I would stop, pull over. I didn't want to get in a wreck and kill somebody else. I said, I can't live like this. So I called a cardiologist, and he said, told him what happened. He goes, it sounds like to me, hug that tree, drilling a hole for the sand. He said, you pushed the blood clot off into your bloodstream. It stuck in your lung, one of your lungs. He said, if it hit your heart, you would have been dead. But he said it hung up in your lung long enough to dissolve and break up. And he said, these spells you're having are small pieces of that clot releasing, breaking up. He said, I think you're out of the woods and you're going to be okay, but, don't re-injure that arm. Don't press against that hemorrhaged area again. He said, you've damaged the sinew there as well as the veins are blown out. And he said, you need to let some time go by and let that all heal up and your veins reroute. And it seems like now the veins are normal looking and all when I do anything strenuous, but I mean, I could just see that taking my life. And they were saying, I said, I was down, I was talking to God. I mean, I'm on the ground and I said, good Lord, you let me die? I said, there's going to be a lot of deer hunters mad at you for not letting me live to get the book done. And I mean, that's when it started calming and I started coming out of it. I mean, I've had some real touch and go life and death situations. That was one more of them. But, I've had a few little lightheaded spells, and a while back I thought, man, I don't know, what have I got? Maybe some blockage in my heart wall, and I'm getting this left arm numbing and kind of faint feeling, kind of a strange light feeling in that arm, and I go, had nothing to do with that skiing accident anymore, but what is that? And I've had like almost a dozen of those little spells, and I just sit still a minute, put my head down a little bit, wait it out, and it's usually gone within 45 seconds. So I don't know what that is. It could be a restricted artery in the wall of my heart or something causing a lack of flow. My dad had an open heart surgery at 72, and they said he would have to have it done again between 8 and 12 years later, and he never had it done again, and he lived to be 86.
Really?
Yeah.
14 years.
He 14 years without any more surgery, and that COVID killed him, supposedly, people are going to say, how'd he die? Hunting legal? I mean, that would have been embarrassing, wouldn't it? Yeah, how'd he die? Guiding hunting legal. That was the death of him. He should have never started hunting legal. It's also going to give me time to paint them stud lines on my ceiling in that office. That's going to make it look like a peppermint stick. I mean, outlaw black with red stripes down the studs in the ceiling. And I've got that, you've seen it through some of those clips, haven't you seen it? Mm-hmm. It's already sharp as shit. Well, when I get that ceiling striped, the bomb, gonna be the bomb. I'm gonna paint a cross on the hall door and stain around it and red trim that door frame, like I've done the front door. And it's already looking bad to the bone. Yeah, I got that red trim up on that door frame this week. One day, had to go to that funeral one day. That cost me even starting it on them ceiling stripes. Didn't have no help. Nobody come help me. I had some guys say they were going to help. Didn't show up. I can't count on people out there where I'm at. Like something happens and they can't get all the way out there. Got too much of a busy schedule and they can't work it in then, whatever. But, yeah, Roy's got one hell of a place here, doesn't he?
Oh, it's paradise.
Phenomenal.
I mean, just the stone that he has built up around the place and the structure. I mean, I can't imagine the man hours to do all this.
Tell you funny, when this lady down next to him, down that direction,
Yeah.
she come over when he started adding on that side building and the more rock wall, he brought it up. She'd come over, excuse me, just how high do you plan on going with that rock wall? He'd say, you guys down there on the end, raise that 3 more feet, that string, you know? Y'all down there, raise it 3 feet on your end, we're gonna go with 3 more rows.
Just because she asked?
And finally, all she had left was a view of the lake from her rooftop. Roy didn't like her coming over here trying to tell him what to do. But there's great hybrid striper in here too. Nathan caught one in here. No, I caught that fish that night. He had one on one time, lost it. I caught a 10.5-pound hybrid in here in the hole one night. He was trying to dip net it, and I go, don't make a bad stab at him and knock him off the hook, Nathan. I'm going to kick your ass. But my boss, Jack Newhouse, before he died, he was coming up here regular and fishing right out there against that rock wall, 20 foot of water, right off the channel of the Trinity River. And he come over here one night and gave us 8 fish that were between 12 and 14 pounds apiece. I filleted them. They were killing them out there. And then he just turned around and went back out there to kill them again. I got up there and fired up the barbecue pit and laid them fillets on their skin scale side. I left the scales and hide on that one side and smoked them with minced garlic and onion on top of them and lemon pepper. So they started steaming after about 45 minutes. We started pulling them off, fed everybody in the house till they couldn't breathe. And that white meat would just fall away from the red vein in the middle of them hybrids. Oh my God, I mean, I ate till I couldn't move. That was some of the best fresh fish eating I've ever done.
I like fish.
All them hybrids are good. They're a pink quail color flesh. They're not white like most fish. They got a pink quail tone to the meat. Have you got one?
No, my hook got caught on that line.
Cord, that darn cord, that's all it's good for.
All right, guys, so wrapping up here at the lake with fishing. Got 2 more podcasts this weekend.
Where are we at?
Another day, another disgusting hotel. Which, this one, honestly, compared to the reviews, it's actually not bad on inside the room.
I mean, hold on. I have a bone to pick. I have a bone to pick.
Men over 18, what is that?
What is this? We know what that is. I haven't touched it with my fingers yet, but that looks crusty.
Full day today with Charlie, crappie fishing, meeting his buddy Roy, seeing a bunch of mounts. Probably one of the most bad A trophy rooms I've ever seen in my life at Roy's house today. But got to spend all day out there. Tomorrow is a big day. We got Chad Allen Jones coming on the podcast. So we'll go to his house in the morning. Heck, probably get some lunch with Chad. And then Jake, Schumann, and Micah are up that evening. And then, probably my favorite part of the trip, we're going to head up to some public land and do some shed hunting. So the weekend has just begun. My battery is full. As long
Camera
as
batteries aren't. We need to charge those.
As long as we get some sleep tonight, I'll be feeling really good. But another night, another slumlord hotel. Here we are. Dude, by the way, $50 deposit. $50 deposit, and they promise to be back in 3 to 5 business days. I do not believe that one bit. You're going to be driving back to Dallas to beat somebody up to get that money back.
I'm not, but the room situation isn't bad. So I don't understand what the outside isn't appealing.
It's time to charge some camera batteries, and big day tomorrow. See you guys tomorrow.